can you hear me? Okay, now you can hear me. Alrighty, how's it going, everybody? Hope y'all are doing well. So yeah, I'm back with another Steins Zero stream. I finished the Suzume video. If you saw the community post about like me making a video on that movie, I started working on it like 2 weeks ago, and I managed to finish it. So you know, if you're interested, I'd appreciate it if you did watch it. But of course, you know, you have free will, right? But yeah, what's it called? So really glad that I got to put that video up. But now that it's out, I get to do this, you know? I get to play more Steins Gate Zero, because I usually, like, when I make a video, I hard focus on that video. I usually use a stream in between that to decompress, but usually the time in between videos is when, like, I get the most streams out. But, you know, I have... Excuse me, sorry, I know that was loud, but I have plans to where this next video will probably be the last one before I start like trying to hard commit to finishing this game, so I can get the video out, or at least like not hard commit, but like focus more on trying to get through this game, because I know I've been kind of stalling out in terms of progress as of like the last week or two. Let me see, because the last stream was 5 days ago, and the one before that was 8 days, or excuse me, 13 days ago. So you know, I could use some more progress on the streams. But yeah, you know, who's to say, right? Like, I don't know what the future holds, but you know, we'll see how far we're gonna get. But yeah, so shoot, honestly, let's just continue. Where's that? There you go. Normally she would have gotten upset at Daru's joke, but either she gotten used to it or simply given up, because she said nothing. Whole lot of
なんと
nothing.
かオカリンが分解しちゃう前の状態に組み立て直したを。機能はほぼ再現できてると思われ。
Daru glanced towards the development room past the curtain in the back of the lab. Right now, he was working with Mahoyo to recreate what Okabe had called the time loop machine.
うまくいかないの？
なんか安定しないっつうか、普通の電子レンジになっちゃうんだよね。
そう。何がいけないのかしらね。
オカリンにそこんところの話を聞ければ違ってくるんだけどな。
無理だよ。私たちがこんなことしているって知っただけで怒鳴り込んでくるよ。おじさんは恐れているんだ。世界線の収束する力というものを。あの人を説得するのは容易じゃない。
Like, Suzuha does care for Okabe. It's just that, like, he's literally the only blockade that's stopping her from changing the future. Like, at the end of the day, like, it's hard not to be a little upset, and she's very upset. So I can see why. I can see why she would be. Can't even blame her for it. But she'd be overreacting a little bit sometimes. I can't even lie. But yeah, in fact, it had almost been a year since she first tried and failed. There was a moment of silence. If I can say something real quick. So, I don't understand why the game does this, where it'll, like, if Okabe is not on the screen, and other if Okabe isn't in the scene, they'll have the characters talk, but then they'll flash to a faded out, like, opaque screen, and just have, like, the narrator, like, you know, they have narration. I don't understand why when the text box is here, I know Shemi, you can probably see because of the mouse, yeah. The text boxes where the characters talk normally is perfectly fine. I feel like it's so like, it's like presentation. I feel like matters to an extent, but once that presentation gets in the way of efficiency, I guess would be the right word, efficiency. I feel like it's a detriment then, because if it's flashy but it doesn't work, then what does it matter, right? And I feel like with this, it just feels so needless. Like I understand why it's there, but I also feel like it needs to be toned down or just not have it at all. I would rather it be toned down because it's still a nice presentation, like a visual presentation of like narration. I do enjoy it. But if you're gonna have it, at least have more narration in there. I just feel like it's done too often. Like legit, we just had 2 scenes where it came up, 1 and 2, and there was barely any. There was no time between them. Like, what was the point of that, right? Like Daru he didn't even need to say this. They could have just been like, oh, this sentence Daru hummed it, and then there was a moment of silence. Like I feel like. And I know it seems like such a weird thing to bring up when it's just 1 sentence, but it's been happening throughout the entire game. I wanted to mention it as like a little like, just look at it going forward and you'll see.
ってマホタン、もしかして寝てんじゃね?
Maho's whole body jerked and she almost fell out of her chair.
危なかったわ。出勤前なのに2度寝してしまうところだった。
つうか頑張りすぎだお。無理して体壊したら意味なくね？
このくらい平気よ。というか、これだけやってもまだ天才にはかなわないんだから。
そんなことないと思うけどな。僕はさ、マホタンだって十分天才だと。
気休めなら不要よ。
Wow, that's cold.
岡部さんの言っていたタイムリープ、こんなにヒントはあるのに、未だに解を見つけられないんだもの。記憶データなんて膨大なものをどうやって圧縮して過去へ送ることができたのか。クリスはそれをやってのけたっていうのに。
Maho seemed upset. It was obvious even through the monitor.
ああ、ごめんなさい。愚痴をこぼしている場合じゃなかったわね。今日の報告、他に何かあるかしら。なければそろそろ出勤しようと思うのだけれど。もう一つある。
Suzuha looked at Daru.
前から調べてほしいって頼まれてた件について。
何か分かったの？はっきりしたことはまだ。そう。
あちこちのネットワークに強引に侵入したりとかギリギリまではやってみたんだお。
別に責めたりしないわ。今分かっていることを教えてちょうだい。
いやむしろ激しく罵倒とかしてくれて OK なわけだが。
父さん。
Lock
早くして時間が来ちゃうから。
ほいほい。
Okay. Taro opened a different window on the monitor. He displayed one of the text files in it. There you go. Let me just finish this real quick. They're not going to be able to because of course they wouldn't. I should have just gone from the other side. There you go. Okay, now I'm good. Alright, anyways. It was a record of the information Daru and Suzo had collected.
まずマホタンたちがホテルの地下駐車場で襲われた事件。警察の発表だと新興カルト教団の男が違法薬物を使った末にって話になってるけど、あれ間違いなく嘘だわ。
嘘？
犯人の身元は警察発表通り某大学の准教授。これはいいんだけどさ、そいつが宗教団体に所属してたっつう事実がこれっぽっちも出てこないんだよね。公安が隠し持ってる教団員のデータにもアクセスしてみたから確定。
捏造ってことなのね。
アットチャンネルとか見てるとさ、信者っぽい人が時々書き子するんだよね。教団は無実だとか陰謀だとか。そうすると一瞬でものすごい数の教団アンチが湧いてきてフルボッコなわけ。
Tips. Hater. People on the internet with a negative opinion about a certain person or thing. They'll go wherever fans of that person or thing gather and deliberately write things to provoke them. They often get into heated debates with fans, aka rage baiters. Beat the daylights. A one-sided battle in which the target gets the daylights beaten out of them. That didn't really define much at all. Okay.
しかもそのアンチども、もっともらしい偽の証拠とかガンガン出してくるんだよ。画像付きとかで。いくらなんでもあれはちょっと異常。
そうなの？私そのアットチャンネルというのをあまりよく知らないから。
アットちゃん含めてさ、大抵の大手サイトには工作員が張り付いてるもんなんだよ。しかもビジネスとしてバイト代もらってね。朝から晩まで24時間ぶっ通しで。
情報操作、プロパガンダだね。
The agenda. Like it's agenda piece. Propaganda. An advertisement for a specific ideology. Primarily used for political and religious purposes. Propaganda has been around since the time of the Roman Empire, beginning in the 20th century, particularly after the end of World War II. Where's the period at? Okay, let me try to read that again. Propaganda has been around since the time of the Roman Empire. Beginning in the 20th century, particularly after the end of World War II, its methods have become more insidious. There's way too many commas in this sentence. The fact that there's two and the sentences are so long. I feel like propaganda has been around since the time of the Roman Empire should be a period, and then there should be its own sentence. But I was gonna say a grammar. I can't really say that because it's not really not a good term to use nowadays. Anyways, one example of this new propaganda would be attempts to manipulate public opinion via mass propaganda, or mass media. Propaganda advertisements are not always true when the most obvious of them include lies or slander towards their targets if it's to their wielder's advantage. Oh, easy.
政治家や官僚なんかもネット世論の誘導に利用してるし、それを専門にしてる会社もあるくらいだお。
なるほど。それならわかるわ。そのあたりはアメリカも日本も同じね。
でも工作員なんて僕からしたら IP 変えてもバラバラなんで。
IP, officially Internet Protocol. However, the term IP is often mistakenly used to describe an IP address. An IP address is essentially an ID number given to a computer to allow it to exchange information via the internet or on LAN. The Internet Protocol is the methods and standards used to exchange information. Wow, okay, two different things.
それでチェックしてみたら、あの事件、すごい人数の工作員が投入されてるっぽい。どこからそんなに金が出てるんだよってレベル。
そう。
父さんのバイト先が襲われた方の事件は？
そっちも同じ。
The police had called it a fight between foreign mafias trying to expand their territory in Japan like it's Yakuza. The media never questioned the story at all, and even people on the boards of the famously skeptical channel believes everything they were told. Of course, there was no mention whatsoever of Russia or CERN.
でさ、試しに目撃者を装ってロシアの特殊部隊を見たってすれ立ててみたんだよね。そしたらまあすごいのなんの、炎上しすぎてびっくりしたお。あん時は思わず工作員の本名から会社名まで全部晒してやろうかと思ったっつうの。
Evidently, he'd been really irritated. It was rare for Taro to get so angry, or maybe it wasn't. She decided.
つまりどこかから圧力がかかっていて幕引きにされたってことね。さすがは自由の国日本だけのことはあるわ。
アメリカも似たようなもんじゃね？
違いないわね。
The two of them smiled at the joke.
つうわけで僕としてはお手上げ。
そう。それで十分よ。調べてくれてありがとう。
ヒヤジョーさん、研究所から来日の許可は下りそうなの？
それがレスキネン教授の助手として連れて行ってもらえるよう何回も申請しているのだけれど、却下の連続なのよ。
レスキネン教授は今こっちに来てるんだっけ？
ええ、新型脳炎の調査でね。
Since it had nothing to do with artificial intelligence, it seemed Maho wouldn't be allowed to go alone.
いいわ。どうしてもダメと言うならこっちにも考えがあるもの。
どうする気？
まさか上官の命令無視してでも正義を貫くとか？そして悪に捕まってしまうんですね。わかります。ねえねえマホタン、殺せって言ってみて。できればすごく悔しそうな顔で。
You know, you would have thought he'd say movie or like game or, you know, anything, but no, it had to be porn. It always has to be porn. Oh, man.
は？
Huh.
父さん。
Suzuha's hand went for her back pocket.
させん。
Wow, she immediately went for her blick. That's crazy. Daru's shoulders slumped as he apologized. Lately, she'd been able to put a stop to Daru's terrible jokes just by doing that. She wasn't sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing that she knew exactly how to handle him. Because he handled him. You know, with a gun.
とにかく近々そっちへ行くわ。
わかった。日程が決まったら連絡を。それとヒヤジョーさん、出勤するならもう一度鏡を見てからにした方がいい。
Just before the end of the call, Suzuha decided to warn her. Maho stood up and walked towards the closet without turning off the camera. She vanished from view, but a moment later, she must have seen how terrible she looked because she let out a very unfeminine scream. They relaxed for a moment after turning off the video chat. Suzuha thought back to the time before she'd become a time traveler. She did this every time she got off the video chat with Maho.
タイムマシン開発の協力者、ヒヤジョーナホか。
It was after Maho had gone back to America that she volunteered to help Suzuha and Daru with the time machine. That meant when Itaru Shida completed the time machine 25 years from now, Maho Hiyasha must have contributed in some way. You'd be surprised at how much she actually did contribute. There you go. But, oh, by the way, the what's it called?
あんまり未来のことを言うのはまずいんだけど、父さんの仲間にそんな名前の人いなかったんだよね。
Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, the video call they were using, it was Skype. because you know this game was made in 2015, so it was before Discord really blew up in popularity.
え、そうなん？
It's crazy to think about that. Like some people have lived in a world where Discord has always existed. Where I lived in a world where I used Skype before I used Discord, and then I got around Discord like a year or two later. It's just crazy to think about is all.
ということはさ、どこかのタイミングで開発メンバーから抜けるってことなんじゃないかな。自分の意思なのか、それ以外の外的要因なのかはわからないけど、少なくとも開発の主要メンバーじゃなかったと思う。
そうなのか。かなり頼もしい人だけどな。
こんなことを言いたくはないけど、どこかのスパイという可能性もある。
いくらなんでもマホタンに限ってそれはないよ。
ごめん。
Yes.
でも
Poor taste.
そういう可能性もあるっていうことだけは頭に入れておいて。言ったでしょ、第三次世界大戦前の情報戦はもう始まってるんだ。どっちにしろマシンの秘密が無駄に漏れるのは困るよ。それだけは徹底するようちゃんと注意しておいてよね。で、この先のタイムマシン開発はどう進めていくつもり？
やっぱオカリンの協力がないとな。
結局そこなんだよね。オカリンおじさん、やっぱり無理なのかな。こうなったら力ずくで。
前にそれしようとして失敗したのはどこの誰だっけ？
He has a point. He has a very valid point. Suzuha pursed her lips. Even with a gun in his face, Okabe Rintaro still wouldn't get in the time. Like he's Shinji. To be honest, Suzuha was out of options. She stifled a sigh. It didn't do any good to just let herself get down.
そういえば母さんとはうまくやれてる？
な？
私そっちの方も心配なんだ。大丈夫？私が生まれてこなくなるような事態にならないよね。
なんつうの？タイムマシンよりもなんだい？
ちょっと。
Suzuha stormed over to daughter.
困るよ、父さん。
パパ頑張るからね。
いっつも口ばっかり。結局例の映画のチケットも無駄にしちゃったんでしょ。
She meant the pair of movie tickets that.
あれは
The pair of movie tickets that. Yeah, we already read this. I think this is no.
さあ、オカリンと吹雪氏が倒れちゃったじゃん。その後お見舞いとかでバタバタしてるうちにそりゃあれだよ。マヨシとフェイリスターに頼りきりなんて男らしくないっしょ。キリ。
Okay. Yeah, this is all the same.
「世界線の摂理を信じるなら父さんは少なくとも2036年までは生きるはずだし。
I see this though. Let me see this.
ただ シュタインズゲート到達を阻止するため
Yep, this is all the same, yeah. I'm good on that. Oh. There you go. When July came, the sun shone down even harder on East Japan, similar to here. The news have been saying for days that the heat island effect might make this the hottest summer in years. And then on the first Sunday in July, the arrivals lobby at the international terminal of Narita Airport was filled with foreigners and Japanese passengers returning home.
すごい人だね。どんどん増えてるかも。
That's crazy that they're just using the old, what's it called, the old ferries. Okay.
日曜日の空港を侮ってたにゃ。
見逃すなよ、マヨリ、フェリス。なんせ相手はとにかくちっちゃいからな。
Crazy to say. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Alright. Oh, I did not mean to. Wow. Okay, cool. Sorry I couldn't go today. It's fine, no problem. Real? Huh? Why? No, please tell Maho I said hello. Sure, got it. Please, thank you. The three of us are waiting for someone there. Yeah, we know who you're waiting for. We've been there for almost an hour. You know, usual wait
オカリ
times.
今の問題発言は彼女に言いつけざるを得ないぞ。
冗談だ、やめてくれ。
でもなかなか来ないね。やっぱりサプライズでこっそり出迎えようとしたのが間違いだったのかにゃ。
せめて何時の便で到着するのかぐらいは聞いておくべきだったな。
And so we all, you see what I'm saying? This is so much better. I think Jane Bruce is so much better. But whatever. And so we all knew all we knew was that she was arriving at Narita on an afternoon flight. If I know we were going to have to wait so long, I would have tried to get the arrival time out of her. There was a stream of passengers flowing by us, but no sign of the person we were waiting for. Just as I started to wonder if we missed her because she was so small, she finally appeared. Or more precisely, I saw a giant travel suitcase rolling all by itself from the gate. Yeah, this dude is so crazy. This dude probably is insane. And from behind it, I heard a voice I recognized.
まったくもうパスポートの偽造なんかしてないわ。なんなのよ。毎回どの国へ行ってもいちいち調べられて時間がかかって仕方ないわ。
I walked up to the suitcase and gave it a
いや
pat.
ジョーさん
Okabe. Maho had been leaning forward and pushing the suitcase as hard as she could. Her mouth hung open when she saw me.
久しぶり無事入国できてよかったな
あなた
なんか随分やつれてるな大丈夫か
大丈夫に決まってってそうじゃないわ。どうしてここに。
今日の昼に来るって話してただろだから驚かせようと思って迎えに来たんだ
Look at Okabe being so cute.
そうなの。
So
それはどうも
For some reason, her voice became really weird the moment she saw me. Was my being here really that much of a surprise?
でも秋葉原駅までは行けるから改札口に迎えに来てくれればいいって言っておいたのに。
まあいいじゃないかせっかくだしそれに君一人で本当に秋葉まで来られるか心配だったから
失礼ね。私はそんなに頼りなくないわ。
Mayuri and Ferris came up as well.
てってれー。てってれー。会いたかったにゃー、マホにゃー。
As Mayuri grabbed Maho's hand, Ferris walked up and gave her a big hug.
マユリさんもフェイリスさんもお久しぶり。二人もわざわざ迎えに来てくれたのね。ありがとう。ちなみにこんな場所で大声でマホニャンと呼ぶのはやめてくれないかしら。にゃんでかわいいのに。周りを見なさい。みんなが笑っているでしょ。恥ずかしいのよ。にゃそうかにゃ。
Ferris really sticks out after all. While we've been waiting here, all the foreigners have been pointing at her and yelling, "Cat ears! Cat ears!" Some had even asked for pictures. That's
いやジョーさん
adorable.
荷物俺が持とう
いえありがとう。
でも結構急な来日だったよな
It was only a few days ago that I found out she was
今回
coming.
もレスキネン教授の手伝いなのか
その
Maho was fidgeting and glancing up at me.
岡部さんはレスキネン教授とはよく連絡を取り合っているの？
ああ教授ずっとこっちで研究を続けてるだろ時々食事に誘ってもらったりしてるんだすごく光栄だよ
そうまずいわね。
まずい何が
こっちの話よ。
She really was acting weird. She wasn't like this when I saw her last winter. Was she tired from her trip? Or was seeing us here that much of a surprise?
今回は教授の手伝いではないの。沖縄の親類のところへ行く予定なのよ。でもせっかくだからその前に秋葉原にも寄ってみようかと思って。
そうか沖縄か
For a moment, the name of that place brought back visions of the nightmarish time. After I collapsed on Christmas, I was sent to another world where I spent a month fleeing to Okinawa.
いいね沖縄。一度でいいから行ってみたいな。マユシーの学校は修学旅行は沖縄じゃないのにゃ。マユシーのところはね北海道だったよ。フェイリ
スはハワイにゃ。うわー、海外だ。アロハ。
I forgot, yeah, Hawaii is a foreign country. Well, I guess because it's part of America, I guess.
じ
Yeah.
ゃあヒアジョーさんは
Putting aside the girls and their talk of school trips.
東京にはそんなにいられないのか。残念だな。
そうね、そういうことになるわね。秋葉原にいる間のホテルとかは決めてあるのかにゃ。まだよ。これから安いビジネスホテルでも探すつもり。だったらこのままフェイリスのお家に来るといいにゃ。この前のお部屋自由に使ってもらって構わないにゃ。でもそんなの悪いわ。またそうやって遠慮するんやから、フェイリスは大歓迎だにゃ。だけどそんなに甘えるわけには。だったらこれでどうかにゃ。お部屋を無償で貸し出す代わりにフェイリスのお店でほんのちょっとだけお手伝いしてもらうのにゃ。お店？メイクインニャンニャンだね。まさかそれってあの猫耳のお店？その通りにゃ。この時期は猫耳メイドのみんなはコミマの準備でいろいろ忙しいのにゃ。お休み取りたいって泣きついてくるんだにゃ。つまり深刻な猫耳メイド不足なのにゃ。なのにゃ。というわけでマフにゃん、どうかにゃ。どうかにゃ。お断りします。なんでって当たり前でしょ。私に似合うわけないわ。似合うよ。絶対に可愛いと思うな、マユシーは。意義なしだにゃ。オカリンもそう思うにゃ。
ああ、きっとファンがつくんじゃないか。
ファンなんてそんな。お世辞は嫌いよ。
別にお世辞じゃないんだけどな。
だとしたら視力検査にでも行ってくることね。にゃにゃ、赤くなったにゃ。なってません。マホニャンはもっと自分の魅力に気づくべきだと思うにゃ。マユシーが男の子だったらキュンってしちゃうのです。だからそんなことないと言ってるのに。
My Yuri's insane for that. Wow.
ヒアジョーさんは多分もうちょっとなんというかおしゃれとかしてみたらいいんじゃないかな。そうすればもっとこう。
So, yeah, Okabe messed up. Yeah, Okabe messed up. I was trying my best to sound encouraging, but just ended up sounding like a real jerk. Of course she was annoyed.
私は今のままで十分よ。研究が第一なんだから。
Oh goodness. Oh my
で
goodness.
もそれじゃあ好きな人とかできたらどうするのにゃ。相手に気持ちを伝えられなくて困っちゃうにゃ。大丈夫よ。そういう人なんてできないと思うから困ったりしないわ。
She gave a sigh that was a little too deliberate.
ごめんなさい。時差ボケと飛行機の疲れでちょっと。わかるにゃ。時差ボケって結構辛いんだにゃ。リムジンを用意してあるからマフニャンは眠っていくといいにゃ。リムジン？
Ferris had rented a white limo to pick up Maha. She really did go overboard, excuse me. But thanks to that, Mayuri and I were able to enjoy its big comfy seats on the way to Narita Airport.
なんならフェリスが膝枕してあげるにゃそれともマユシーの膝がいいかにゃマユシーは OK だよ
Mayuri, sweetheart.
結構よ。子供じゃあるまいし。
でも傍目から見てもだいぶ疲れてるってわかるな。そんなに研究が忙しいのか？
それはまあ掛け持ちしているわけだから。
掛け持ちというとアマデウス以外にも何かやっているのか？
Maho's such a bad liar, oh my goodness. She quickly put her hand over her mouth.
それは企業秘密なの。
そうか、それは悪かった。
It was true that American university labs had a lot of stuff like that going on there. I heard that there was a bunch of industrial spies. If she wasn't careful about what she said, she might get fired or worse. It was a mistake on my part to even ask.
そういえば橋田さんは今日はどうしたの？
あいつなら今日は人生をかけた大事な用があってな。
人生をかけた？
はるくんは今デート中なんだよ
Maho's shock was almost comical.
私本当に疲れているのね。ひどい幻聴を聞いたわ。
いや、そう思うのも無理ないが。
本当にデートなのです
信じられない。嘘でしょ？あの変態が。
Even Maho was calling him a pervert. Daru said he was talking to Maho a lot too, and I could just imagine what their conversations were like. But actually, if Daru didn't do his best today, it would ruin the world's entire chain of causality. In that sense, Daru's date today was an event with universe-spanning implications. Yeah, we've already seen this, it's fine. Oh, okay, this is new stuff, yeah. Okay. And then she heard a car park in front of the lab. She recognized the voice coming from below the open window.
おフェリスさんの声じゃね
Suza let go of Itaru's collar and moved over to the window. Below, she saw a group of people she knew. Rentaro Okabe, Mayuri Shina, Ferris Nyanyan, and Maho Hiyaja.
ヒヤジョーさん、もう到着してたのか。でもなんでオカリンおじさんたちと一緒なんだろう。
And then she gave a start and turned back towards the room.
まずいよ、それ出しっぱなし。
え
Suza pointed towards the desk. Sorry, goodness. Suza pointed towards the desk in the development room where the phone wave may subject to change. Unit 002 was sitting.
あやばいやばい覚醒
オーキードーキー。
If nothing else, this meant that Maho Hiyaja was coming to the future Gaijin lab. Suza hoped that this meant that the work on the phone wave would get back on track. Presage or recognize. Wow, we just got to the chapter. Wow. Okay. Vega and Altair. This is Vega and Altair. There was a small explosion in a room filled with smoke.
窓開けて。
ゲホゲホゲホ、大きいゲホ動機。
Maho crawled out into the living room. Daru rushed to open a window, and she heard a man who was probably the building's owner yell up at them.
おい、カズだ。今の音は何だ。おめえ、テロでも起こった？するぞ。すいません、電子レンジが爆発したんですよ。
Daru poked his head out and apologized to the man below. It took a minute, but the owner was finally satisfied and the argument ended.
それにしてもビビった。
As Daru wiped away the sweat, she saw that his face and clothes were both covered in soot.
ビビったじゃないわよ。
Maho was no different. Some of her hair had been burnt off, and the white lab coat she'd gone through all that trouble to get had turned pitch black.
どういうことか説明して。なぜいきなり煙を吹いたの？
電子レンジが原因だと思われ、粗大ゴミで捨てられてたのを拾ってきたやつだから、どこかショートしたのかも。
Yo, this dude, bro.
寄ってきたって。あなたね。私たちが作ろうとしているのは人類史に名を残すレベルの大発明なのよ。なのになんで粗大ゴミを部品に使っているの？
業務用の電子レンジは高いのだぜ。
信じられない。
I mean, he is right.
私のクレジットカードを使ってもいいからなんとかしなさい。
Maho didn't have that much money, but this is no time to be cheap.
それは助かるよ。
Got it from a dumpster. I forgot about that. Wow. Maho wiped her sweaty, soot-covered face with a towel. The white towel turned black immediately.
もう我慢できないわ。エアコンを入れるわよ。
それは無理。電話レンジカッコ仮2号機と一緒に稼働させるとブレーカーが落ちるんで。つうかそのエアコン、電気代がとんでもないことになるから、1日1時間しか使うの禁止って言ったっしょ。
These working conditions were abysmal. Was Kurisu really able to create the time leap machine under these circumstances? Yes, she was. She wholeheartedly was. Just thinking about it gave her even more respect for Kurisu.
わかったわよ。でも髪まですすまみれだからシャワーを借りたいのだけれど。
どうぞどうぞ。
もしちょっとでも覗くような真似をしたらすぐに鈴葉さんに連絡するから、そのつもりで。
Wow, that's a threat.
そんなことしないって。
He's a pervert, but... Well, no, he's a pervert, but he's not a pervert, I guess is the way to put it. For some reason, Daru responded to Maho's warning by sighing and slumping it. Never mind, he's just a pervert. I was wrong. And slumping his shoulders.
つうか僕は今そういう冗談に付き合っていられるほど心の余裕はないよ。
Maho hadn't meant it as a joke. She was extremely serious.
昇進の僕は今週はエロゲすら立ってる状態なんで。
Is that... I'm in such a bad way that I'm not even playing H games? Bad way? I guess, yeah. She heard from Suzuha that the day she arrived in Japan, Daru had screwed up on a date bad. Up bad on a date. It was true that Daru was a lot quieter than his usual self. Mayuri had even said that Daru not playing Mayuri had said that Daru not playing hentai games must be an omen of some impending natural disaster. But you know what's crazy? This dude Daru be playing porn games in front of his friends, and not in like showing them, but like just casually playing porn games in front of them. Like, that's crazy. But either way, she didn't have time for his negativity, so she mostly ignored him and went to the shower room. Since Suzuha used to shower regularly, it was relatively clean. There was a good selection of body soap and shampoo, and Suzuha told her she could use it as she liked. That's nice.
まったくせっかくの七夕だっていうのになんでこんなすすまみれになってないといけないのかしら。
That day was indeed Tanabata. Actually, Maho had been secretly looking forward to this day. As she lived in America for so long, she was interested in Japan's traditional summer holiday. Yep. She was especially interested in the famous story of Orihime and Hikoboshi, and the custom of writing down wishes and hanging them on bamboo. Orihime and Hikoboshi, yep. Orihime. A girl who appears in the legend of Tanabata. The star Vega in constellation Lyra is known as Orihime's star. She was the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven and was given the name Orihime, weaving princess, because of her mastery of the loom. She is married to Hikoboshi, Natsuhiko, but the Emperor of Heaven decreed that they would only be allowed to meet once a year on July 7th in the old Japanese calendar. Hikoboshi, a man who appears in the legend of Tanabata. In Japan, Altair, the biggest star or the brightest star of the constellation Aquila, is known as the summer Hikoboshi star. The star Vega, Orihime, is separated from Altair by the Milky Way. And the legend says that only Tanabata can they cross it and come together. This was originally a Chinese legend. Since she was here too, she sort of wanted to try writing down a wish too. She didn't want to bring it up herself because she didn't want anyone thinking of her as childish, but Mayuri Ferris and the other girls seemed like they wanted to do something like that. Part of her hoped that they invite her too. That's why it hurt so much to be spending this hot summer afternoon in the lab with Daru, covered in sun. She was thinking about that as she washed herself off when she could hear Daru calling her from outside.
何よ、まさか本気で覗くつもり？このドアをちょっとでも開いてみなさい。泣いちゃうから。
そんな燃えてる。
Oh, Maho. Oh no. Maho's so adorable. Talking about, I'll dare you to open it. I'll cry. Yeah. Yeah, my girl, like. I think that's really cute. I agree with Daru. It's no time to be cute. Okabe. Maho's mind started to race. She'd been told that Okabe rarely came to the lab anymore. In fact, after he dropped her off here on the first day, he hadn't come by even once. That's why she felt safe going in and out of the lab, but
電話レンジカッコ仮2号機は隠しといたけど、僕らがやってる研究のことバレないように気をつけて。
わかった。というか私、ここにいたらまずいじゃない。フェイリスさんのマンションに戻って隠れていないと。
なんで？
だって本来なら私は今頃沖縄にいるはずなのよ。
that's how she explained her visit to Okabe. If he found out she was working on the phone with Daru, there'd be trouble.
そうだった。じゃあ急いで出てきて。
あなたがそこにいたら出られないでしょ。 After she was sure Daru was gone, she quickly washed the bubbles from the body soap off her body. Her long hair still wasn't dry, but there wasn't time for that. No time for that metal. There you go. Let's see. She wiped herself off with a towel and was about to leave the shower room when she heard the door open.
Yo, got it.
He was already here. She quickly shut the door to the room again. But then she looked down and saw that she was naked. Her clothes were lying on the floor past the door. There was no way she could get them without Okabe seeing her. Her only choice was to stay hidden, completely undressed, and wait for him to leave.
でもこんなのすごくなんていうかそわそわして落ち着かない。
happens when you lie to your friends, unfortunately.
よう、誰？
Daura greeted me as I came inside the lab. He seemed to be in kind of a hurry.
ああ、オカリンか。一人で来るなんて珍しいじゃん。
The room smelled kind of like smoke. Someone must have been using the shower room because the smoky smell was mixed with the scent of soap. But whoever it definitely wasn't Daura. His face and clothes were black with soot. I thought it might be Suzuho, but the lights in the shower room were turned off.
何してたんだ？お前真っ黒だぞ。
ああ、これはこの前粗大ゴミの電子レンジを拾ってきたんだよね。で、さっきそれでコンビニ弁当を温めてたら爆発した。
It's crazy, right? Because like, if I'm not wrong, or if I'm not mistaken, this scene is very important. This scene coming up is so important. I can't stress it enough. Like, we're gonna be seeing a crucial scene.
爆発
So
って
just be on the lookout for that.
大丈夫か？
ブラウン氏に怒られたお。
あまり目をつけられるなよ。いつ追い出されるかわからないんだから。そんなことになれば、お前はともかく鈴葉は行くところがなくなるだろう。
そうだね。で、今日はどうしたん？マヨシなら来てないけど。
お前に話があるんだ。朗報だぞ。
だが断る。
まだ何も言ってないだろ
う。オカリンの持ってきた話がまともだったことなんて一度もないんで。
まあ聞けって。昨日の夜さ、レスキネン教授と食事に行ったんだ。それで留学の話になったんだけど。
ああ、またその話か。
I was keeping in touch with Dr. Leskinen. Of course, the professor knew that Maho was here in Japan. Yesterday, he'd show me a picture of her taken in Okinawa. I can see her standing in the surf with a blank expression on her face. A friend or a family member must have taken it. Dr. Leskinen had been really nice to me, and I talked to him a lot about going to Victor Condria. Of course, at a minimum, I need to graduate my current school and pass the exchange exam for Victor Condria.
せっかくだからダルのことも教授に話してみたんだ。そうしたら興味を持ってくれた。
僕？
ビクトル・コンドリア大学には情報科学研究所っていうところがあってな、世界最高のハッカーが集まってるらしいんだよ。ダルの腕なら通用するんじゃないか？
I've been inviting Daru to come to America with me, but he didn't seem that interested. He said things like, I can't imagine living away from the otaku mecca, and no way am I living anywhere you can't get H games and anime figures. Unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately for him, you can do that. It's just, I guess in the era now, like 2011, you wouldn't be able to do that. He done nothing but give excuses like that.
そりゃあ僕はスーパーハッカーだし通用すると思うけどさ。
とりあえず教授に会ってみるだけならどうだ？面識だってあるんだし。
今忙しいんだお。
一日ぐらいなら時間作れるだろう。
コミマが終わるまでは無理かな。
1ヶ月以上先じゃないか。
とにかくしばらくは無理。
やれやれ。本当に言い訳ばっかりだな。そんなに行きたくないのか？
I sighed and sat down on the sofa. This room really was hot as hell during the summer. The windows were open and the fans were running at full speed, but I was still sweating. There was an air conditioner, but evidently he wasn't using
誰？
it.
毒ペって置いてあるか？
さあどうだったかな。マヨシが買い置きしてるかも。
I got up and took a look in the fridge in the corner of the room. There was regular soda, mineral water, and some sports drinks, but not a single Dr. P. As usual, the freezer was stuffed with juicy fried chicken #1. My ear really did buy a ton of that stuff. Wait, was there even more than usual? Maybe she bought some for Suzuha too.
スポーツドリンクもらうぞ。
鈴葉の飲みかけ以外なら OK。
I grabbed an unopened bottle and took a big gulp. I happened to take a look at the snack shelf next to the fridge. Mixed in with the instant noodles and snacks were 5 bunches of bananas. Mayuri must have bought those too. But still, all that fried chicken and all these bananas. Was she eating more than she had been? She always said that no matter how much she ate, she never got fat, but if she bought this many bananas at once, they were all going to turn brown and squishy before she could eat them all.
マユリのやつ、バナナを買いすぎじゃないか？
ああ、それ買ってきたのマユシじゃなくて僕。あ。
ん？
Daru quickly cut himself off. I turned toward him and he averted his gaze. He'd been acting really weird this whole time. Was he hiding something?
お前がこんなに買ったのか？いつからバナナ好きになった？
Oh my goodness, sorry. I wouldn't say it's indigestion, but there you go. Oh, what? I lost a subscriber? That sucks. Oh, it's the games we play. Alrighty, back to it.
いやほら、鈴葉に言われてるんだって。ダイエットにいいから毎日食べろってさ。
そういえば昔そんなダイエットが流行ったな。
Some celebrity had gone on TV and said she lost a bunch of weight on a banana diet, and the next day all the bananas in Japan disappeared from stores. My dad had tried to get in on the little boom a little too late and bought a huge supply of bananas only to see it flare out and most of them rot on the shelves. I remembered that.
だからってこんなに一度に買うなよな。だいぶ色が変わってきてるじゃないか。
Well, whatever. I was hungry, so I decided to take one. took a banana and peeled the
と
skin.
にかく少しは加減ってものを考えろ。
そうだね。うん。
I finished the banana in 3 bites up. Dang, wow, 3 bites? Okay, I went to toss the peel in the burnable trash can. Oh no. And then I noticed something strange. The can was filled with bananas. More than anybody could possibly eat. Over half the can was filled up with bananas. It wasn't just the skins. Some of them were unpeeled but half rotten. And the summer heat made them give off a nasty stench. I remember seeing something like this once before.
またゲルバナ作るの？
Oh no. That's right. It was when I was living here a year ago, doing experiments every day. And then my mind flashed back to the contents of the fridge and that bizarre stockpile of juicy fried chicken. It couldn't be. I plunged my hand into the garbage can, not caring about the film.
オカリン。
Dara was clearly uneasy, but I ignored it. I was right. Under the remains of the bananas, I saw tons of empty fried chicken. No matter how much Mayuri liked them, or how much of a glutton Daru was, no one would voluntarily eat this much fried chicken every day. I went deeper into the garbage can, and then I found something I didn't want to see.
なあ、ダル、
Oh no.
なんぞ。
バナナと冷凍唐揚げの組み合わせ。懐かしいな。
That's the thing, Daru doesn't know that because that was undebatable, like at the alpha. But that is an insane thing to say. That is an insane thing to say. Okabe sounds crazy right now.
1年くらい前か。よくこうして実験してたよな。
Well, I guess because they
か
did
なり無駄な
experiment.
使い方してたから、真由里によく怒られた。食べ物を粗末にしちゃダメだって。
Oh no.
そうだね。
しょうがないから電子レンジで温かくなったバナナも俺たちで食べて処分したよな。あれはひどい味だった。でもさすがにこれは食べられなかったよ。
The green ones. What I pulled out of the garbage can was a green, gooey mass. It was a thick, disgusting liquid like you'd expect to see if you crushed a giant bug. The goo dripped out of my fingers and splattered onto the floor. It was what used to be a banana. What we once called a gel nana.
おう、しまった。
Daru put his hands to his head. But then he evidently gave up on hiding it.
まずった。こんなあっさりバレちゃったか。もうちょっと隠し通せると思ったんだけどな。実際さ、目処がついたらちゃんと相談したいこともあったし、打ち明ける予定ではあったんだけど。
Daru tossed me the towel. Evidently, he already used it because it was covered in black soot, but I decided to wipe the janana off my hands with it anyway. Daru went into the development room and started moving boxes and dust covers.
これが2号機。
On the table appeared the horrible future gadget number 8, which I built, improved, and finally dismantled a year ago.
組み立て直したのか。
電話レンジカッコ仮バージョン2とどっちがいいか結構迷った。
名前なんてどうでもいい。
マジ？オカリンの言葉とは思えないな。どの未来ガジェットもさ、円卓会議やって大騒ぎして名前決めたじゃん。
黒歴史だろ。
そう？
Daru was looking at the dust-covered future gadgets that were sitting on a shelf of the development room. There was something like fondness in his gaze, which granted, that's true. Why the hell was he... Like, to be fair, even if you don't like number 8, all the other ones are just fun memories. Like, even if Daru, for the most part, seemed like, whatever, I don't really care about this in the first game. He did care about them. They were their creations, Okabe, Daru, and Mayuri. You know, granted with Mayuri playing a different role, but still being a part of the lab. They all created this. And then, you know, Kurisu added on to it. Did he think of that nightmare as some kind of happy, youthful memory? I was about to tell him to go screw himself, but held it in.
お前俺が言ったことを忘れたのか。これは危険だ。俺たちが持っていて一種のものじゃない。
うん、けどさ、僕未来でタイムマシン作らないといけないんだよね。そうするとやっぱこいつを研究することがその第一歩だと思うわけ。
誰？
I gave up on trying to hold it back. I got up in his face and yelled.
何度も話したよな。こいつのせいで何が起こったのか。こいつのせいで俺がどんな体験をしたのか。これを作ったことでマユリは殺されるんだ。これを作ったことでクリスは犠牲になったんだ。これを作ったことでお前の娘は過去へ飛んで自殺までしたんだ。忘れたって言うならもう一度話してやろうか。お前はそんなにバカだったのか。自分でそれを体験してみないとわからないほどバカだったのか。
バカはあなたよ、岡部倫太郎。
I suddenly heard an angry female voice behind me. I looked back and saw Maho Hiyashi glaring at me.
ヒヤジョさん。
おう、ゴーホロリ来たこれ。
Alright, relax. What are you doing, bro? I like this art better because of the art style more than the Skype one. I feel like the Skype one was a little too derpy for me. But anyways, yeah.
なんて格好してるん
We
だ
don't
よ。
need to see that. We don't
っ
need
て
to
い
see
うか
that.
なんでここに。
これはそのつい勢い余ってあまりジロジロ見ないで訴えるわよ。
そっちがそんな格好で出てきたんじゃないか。
ちょっと待ってなさい。今服を着てくるから。
Maho's such a goofball, I can't. Maho quickly went back into the shower room and came out just a moment later.
失礼、待たせたわ。
もしかして俺が来た時から隠れてたのか。
私のことはどうでもいいでしょ。
レスキネン教授に送った沖縄での写真はわざわざ捏造したのか。
Both the professor and I were completely taken in by that picture for standing on the Okinawan beach. But it seemed we both been tricked. It was well made enough that Daru must have been
君の
involved.
来日の目的は沖縄じゃなかったというわけだ。
ええ、そうよ。あなたが電話レンジカッコ仮なんていうセンスのない名前をつけたそのマシンのために来たの。
君にも説明したはずだ。D メールによって一体何が引き起こされたのかを。
Ah, D-mail, short for DeLorean mail, a text message that is capable of traveling to the past. D-mails are sent from a cellular phone to the phone wave, named subject to change. However, they can't be sent too close to the present. Also, they will only contain a little over 36 bytes of data.
それをまた繰り返すつもりか。
Excuse me. Oh my god.
違うわ。
Oh my gosh.
何が違う？
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I just had to yawn. That was not a yawn. No, I don't know what that was.
D メールを送ればそれはエシロンに補足され世界線は今のベータから再びアルファに戻ってしまうんだ。
Oh, I forgot Echelon's real. This sounds like straight Chudy nonsense. Oh man, alright, tips. Echelon. An advanced communications monitoring system said by conspiracy theorists to be owned by the US government. It's said that the system is operated by America's National Security Agency, NSA, but the US government has never publicly admitted to its existence and no proof of it has ever been found. Participating countries supposedly include America, England, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. France is not included among them. Japan is what's called a third party, which receives information in exchange for putting an echelon receiving station in their country. It is rumored that the elephant cage, a massive antenna found at the Misawa Air Base in Aomori, is actually part of Echelon. It supposedly intercepts a wide variety of messages from military traffic to individual cell phones, all of which is stored and monitored.
そうしたらマユリはまた死ぬ。何度やっても助けられない。永遠に死に続ける。
And then I had a terrifying thought and stared directly into Maho's eyes. No way. She of all people couldn't possibly. I trusted Maho completely. I didn't want to believe she was capable of it. But the terrible machine that I just confronted had drained me of any kind of rationality. A flashback felt like it was gonna hit me any second. Images of Kurisu and Yuri's death were flashing through my mind. And so I said something I should have never said.
まさか世界線をアルファに戻したいのか。
え？
クリスが生きていてマユリが死んでいる世界を望むのか。
この野郎
There was an impact on my cheek and a loud sound in my ears. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the ground face up. It was a while before I understood what had happened. The left half of my face felt like it was on fire. I was punched by Daru. I'd known him for 5 years and this is the first time anything like that had happened.
謝れ！今すぐ真帆たんに謝れ！
ちょっとやめなさい、橋田さん。
オカリンがどれだけ苦しんでるかなんて僕には想像しかできないけどさ。だから安っぽい同情なんてしないし、するつもりもねえよ。でもな、お前結局ただそれに甘えてるだけじゃねえか。真帆たんだって鈴葉だって真由しだってみんながお前のためにどれだけ。
もういいからよしなさい。
Maho grabbed Daru's body and tried to hold him back.
離せ！こいつもっとぶん殴ってやらないとわかんないんだよ。
もう十分よ、今ので十分だから落ち着いて。
And this time Maho put her hand on Daru's shoulder.
後の説明は私がしておくわ。顔でも洗ってきなさい。ほら。
She pointed towards the shower room and Daru finally seemed to get control of himself again.
わかった。
He looked a little awkward as he lowered his fist. Normally he hated any kind of seriousness, so in a situation like this, he'd always tell one of his perverted gentleman jokes. But there were no jokes as he vanished beyond the curtain into the shower room. A moment later I could hear the sound of water.
まったく。
Maho was looking down at
あ
me.
なたがおかしなことを言うからよ。
そうだな。すまなかった。今のは決して本心じゃ。
分かってるわ。あなたそんな人じゃないもの。ほら立てる？
I grabbed her hand and slowly got up. I took it a solid hit when I wasn't expecting it, and so my head was still a little dizzy.
今のは聞いた。普段優しいやつが怒ると聞くな。
そうね。しかも自分のためじゃなく他の誰かのために怒れる人は素敵だと思う。少しだけ見直したわ。
Maho seemed a bit happy as she looked toward the shower room.
見直したのは少しだけなのか。
だって私への言動がいつもセクハラばっかりだもの。
もしかしたら 君のことが好きになったのかもしれないぞ。子供がよくやるだろう。好きな子に意地悪するとか、あれと同じだ。あいつ頭の中子供だからな。
冗談じゃないわ。鈴葉さんを私の娘にしたいわけ？
それはまずいな。
I chuckled a bit but quickly stopped and turned to face Maho. The difference between our heights was so great that I was looking down on
俺
her.
の主観で言えば、この世界はクリスの選択のおかげで存在してるんだ。クリスがいたからマイリは無事でいられる。幸せに暮らしていられる。それを俺も守らなくちゃいけない。君は科学者だ。俺なんかよりずっと優れた頭脳の持ち主だ。だから理解できるだろう、この世界の摂理を。
ええ。
Maho quietly nodded.
それは言ってみれば神みたいなものなんだよ。神に人間が挑むなんて無謀だったんだ。なのに俺はそれに何回も何十回も何百回も挑んで、全てが失敗に終わった。無駄だったんだ。人の傲慢を神は決して許さない。
そうね。
Maho was looking out the window. It was as if she was thinking back to her homeland and ancestors.
神というのは私の祖国やあるいは沖縄の人たちの間でもポピュラーな存在として信じられているわ。私も祖父母や父母からその素敵な考えを教えられてきた。科学に身を捧げるものではあるけれど、決して神を侮ったりはしない。
それなら。
Maho shook her head a little and looked up at me with a piercing
けどね、
gaze.
あなたが盛んに口にする神はそれとは全く違う。
Her words were sharp, with no room for disagreement.
世界の摂理ですって。そんなものはただこの世界を構築している数式に過ぎないわ。神なんて立派なものは介在していないし、私たちに解が導けない道理はないのよ。
I was about to respond, but before I could, Maho went inside a development room. I had no choice but to follow her.
D メールとエシロンとの因果、それによる危険性については十分認識しているわ。安心しなさい。 D メールは今の時点では封印してある。あなたの懸念しているような事態は起こらないし、私が絶対に起こさせない。アルファ世界線に戻させたりもしない。もちろん D メールの危険を回避する方法もエシュロンを無効化する策も橋田さんと検討中よ。ただ今はその検証にリソースを割くより先にやらなくてはならないことがあるの。個人的にもね。
Maho tapped the top of the phone wave unit 02.
今私たちが研究しているのはクリスが成し遂げたというタイムリープの方。
じゃあタイムリープしかできないのか、それ。
そういうことになるわね。
She was right. I was looking at a time leap machine, not the phone wave named subject to change. I could tell they recreated all the improvements that Kurisu had made to the phone wave. The most obvious was the PC and the monitor that were connected to the microwave. And connected to the PC was a headset and what looked like a cord covered in electrodes. In this world line, only I knew the details of how the time loop machine was set up, and I hadn't told Daru or Maho about them. In other words, only some small hints. Maho had managed to create the same thing as Kurisu.
正直なところとても悔しいわ。
悔しい。
研究すればするほどやっぱり私はクリスにはなれないって思い知らされるのよ。記憶をデータ化して それをトップダウン検索信号込みで携帯電話に転送する。そこまではできるの。ただ最大の問題がクリアできない。クリスはそれをやってのけたのに。
データの圧縮だな。
Maho nodded.
何テラバイトもある膨大な記憶データをどうやって圧縮するのか、その謎が私ではどうしても解けない。
That was the part that Kurisu had struggled with the most too. But in the end, with Daru's help, she'd been able to do it.
あなたはクリスから何か聞いているのかしら、その方法を。
She seemed a little unhappy as she asked me that. Asking for the answer meant giving up on finding a solution for herself, and so it meant admitting defeat. Maybe that was really hard for her. If she'd chosen to put completing the machine first. But I had no intention of giving her the answer right away.
前に俺の経験したことを話した時に約束をしたよな。覚えてるか？タイムマシンでマキセ・クリスを救おうなんて絶対に考えるな。
ええ。
今でもその約束を守るつもりがあるか？その気がないなら協力はできない。
Maho didn't answer for a while, but without even looking at her face, I could tell she was being torn apart inside.
もちろん守るわ。あなたとの約束だもの。
After a long pause, she gave her answer. I couldn't help but laugh.
君は嘘が下手だな。そんな顔をしていたらすぐにバレる。話は終わったな。
Then I left the development room. I looked toward the shower room, but I could still hear the sound of falling water from within. Daring was showing no signs of being
Nah.
done.
ダル、バカは俺だった。本当にすまなかった。
I spoke, but there was no answer. Maybe he hadn't heard me. Seemed better for both of us if I apologized
Mata.
tomorrow.
明日来るから。
That was all I said as I headed towards the door.
岡部さん。
Maho followed me. She came up to me so fast she almost slammed into me.
シュタインズゲートは実在すると思う？マユリさんが死ぬことなく、そしてクリスも犠牲にならない、そんな狭間の世界線があると思う？
それを目指した俺の顛末を知りたいなら鈴葉に聞くといい。結局運命には逆らえなかった。あんなのはくだらない妄想だよ。
そう言い切ってしまって本当にいいの？ないと証明されたわけではないのよ。
そんなのまさに悪魔の証明じゃないか。そんな証明誰にもできるわけがない。
That's how Kurisu did it though. So devil's proof. Said to be originally developed by a jurist in medieval Europe during a case over possession rights. It's used as a hypothetical today in other contexts, such as law or politics during discussions of rule value. It's so funny. Imagine being in that trial, in that court case, just being like, alright, so check me out, right? I'm gonna show y'all the devil's proof. And this just like, this dude is barring up in the court case talking about like, you can't prove something that doesn't exist, cuz that's not how it's going, that's not how it's happening. And then the dude on trial is like, oh my god, he's right! Like over here blowing these dudes' minds, bro. Medieval Europe, they would have been fried. That's a modern day, what's it called right here? Modern day genius. There you go. For example, if someone were to tell you to prove that the devil exists, you could in turn demand proof that the devil does not exist. Then when they fail to provide that proof, you could say, since you can't prove the devil doesn't exist, he must exist. This is of course simple. You know, that's very true actually. I didn't think about that. This is of course simple sophistry that proves nothing at all. But since it can turn a debate into an endless loop, traditionally the burden of proof is placed on the first person to make a statement. That's crazy. Simple sophistry.
そうよ。あるのかないのかも証明されていないのに、あなたはたった一度失敗したくらいで諦めた。
Maho was gritting her teeth hard.
呆れてしまうわ。
何？
I almost went out of control and grabbed her by the shoulders, but I managed to stop myself at the last
さっき
second.
も言っただろう。俺はそれ以前に何回も何十回も何百回も挑んで。
私も言ったはずよ。それは神の摂理でも何でもないって。世界線もタイムマシンもシュタインズゲートなんてものも、どれも世界を構築するただの数式に過ぎない。何回も何十回も何百回も失敗した。だからなんだというの？そんなの科学の世界では当たり前のことよ。それで失敗したのなら何千回も何万回も何億回も挑戦すればいい。そうすれば必ずそこに解放は見つかる。
君は何も知らないし経験していないから、そんな無責任なことが言えるんだ。
いいえ、嫌というほど経験してきたわ。失敗も挫折も後悔もその痛みもマキセ・クリスという天才のせいで。
数式に感情はないだろう。
数式を解くのは人間よ。結局のところね。
We were glaring at each other, our faces close enough to kiss. Maho's gaze burned into me. For some reason I couldn't bear to look at her, so I turned away. Because part of him knows that she's right. As crazy as it sounds, even though Maho doesn't have that experience, that pain of trying over and over again but people's lives being involved, she knows what setbacks are. She knows what pain of pain of failing, pain of failure. She knows that. And so while they're different circumstances, they have a similar outline in a way. So Okabe gave up. There's just no real way about it, right? Like Okabe gave up. He settled. When there's an answer right in front of him, he's just choosing to look away. There you go. I turned around without saying a word and tried to head for the door. Or excuse me, so I turned away. I turned around without saying a word and tried to head out for the door. But she grabbed the hem of my shirt and stopped me. I didn't expect that.
まだ何か用か。
I turned around and nodded. A moment ago, her expression had been so fierce, but now she simply wore a sad smile. It is so different that for a moment, I thought I jumped both ones. Maho whispered to me.
あなたこそ嘘が下手ね。
嘘。
Was I lying? I put my hands up to my face trying to figure out what she meant. But that didn't tell me what kind of look I had on my face, of course. So I simply stood there
嘘
confused.
ってなんだ。俺は嘘なんてついてない。
橋田さんに聞いたんだけど、1年前のあなたってタイムマシンに関しては取り付く島もなかったんですってね。シュタインズゲートの話なんてそれこそ論外、口にするのもはばかられるほどだったって。
一体何を言って。
でも今は違うわ。だってあなたのその顔、クリスに実証実験で負けて、論文の評価でも負けて、名声でも負け続けて、落ち込んでもうダメだって思って、けどいつも最後は鏡を見て自分を叱りつけたのよ。
Mao pointed to her own heart with her index
挑
finger.
戦するのを諦めたら終わり、そうしたら永遠に勝つことはできないってね。
Then she pointed at my left breast.
今のあなたはその時の私と同じ顔よ。心の奥の奥ではまだリベンジする気でいる。自分をこんな惨めな男へと貶めたシュタインズゲートに。
Me. I still hadn't given up.
そんなことはない。
違わないわ。あなたってね、ほんと私にそっくり、まるで胸像みたい。強情で一度言い出したら聞かなくて、自分が間違ったと分かってもそれを絶対に認めたくなくて子供みたいに拗ねて、誰かに心配や迷惑ばかりかける。で、そんなことないよとか少しくらいはフォローしてもらえないとちょっと傷つくわね。けどね、だからこそわかるのよ。私もあなたも最後は絶対に自分の足で立ち上がるの。そうでしょ、岡部倫太郎さん。もう一度言うわ。あらゆる世界の摂理はただの数式であり、その解放は必ず存在する。私は何としても見つけてやるわ。神なんて介在しない、ただの数式を解く鍵を。そうしてマユリさんが死なない、クリスも生きている狭間の世界線に続く道へとたどり着いてやる。
After saying all that, Maho was a little out of breath. She had a lot of vitality in her tiny body. Her words, the way she looked, they hit me so hard I couldn't speak.
で、あなたはどうするの？岡部所長、ここはあなたのラボなのでしょ？いつまでも所長不在では話にならないのだけれど。
俺は
And then I got a Ryan message. Is it Mayuri? If I remember correctly, is it Mayuri? It's Kako. Oh, big trouble, what do I do? Mayuri, I just happened to pass her by. She was running away crying. I've never seen her so sad. Mayuri was crying. I could tell that something bad was going on. When she saw my shock, Maho looked over at the phone too. Oh, she was crying. What happened? I don't know. I just happened to run into her, so I said hi. And she was crying. I was really surprised when I asked what was going on. She was really upset. She said that it was her fault. Kurisu had died, and that's why you were suffering. She said she should have died instead. And then she ran away. I ran after her, but I lost her. What do I do, Okabe? What do I do?
なんだって。
I looked at
ま
Maho.
さか聞かれてたのか今の話。そういえば
Daru had come out of the shower room at some point and was standing right behind me.
オカリンがラボに来るって知らせてくれたのマユシだ。マユシもここに向かってる途中だって言ってた。
Then that meant there was a good chance she did.
そんな
I felt like my knees were going to give out. Mayuri existed in this world line because of Kurisu's sacrifice, and that was the one thing that Mayuri could never find out. Me, Daru, Suzuha, Ferris, Maho, everyone who knew the truth had kept it from her. I needed to find her. I needed to find Mayuri. I couldn't let her be alone right now. I ran out of the lab.
まだ暑いな。
The summer solstice had passed, and by 6 p.m. the sun was finally setting behind the city's skyline. Part of the sky was still red and the rest a dirty blue. For the past few days, Suzuha had worked on a time machine on top of the radio building. It was almost time for her to go back to the past, which meant she was putting a lot more effort into the maintenance work. Parts which could normally get dirty with no trouble had been polished to a sparkling shine.
気負いすぎてるかな。やっぱり不安なのか。
She finished her work, put her tools back in the box, and stored the box in the time machine's cockpit. She then sat down in the control seat and took another look at the battery gauge. With the amount of fuel she had left, in less than a month she wouldn't be able to go back to July 27, 2010. She had to leave this era before the time limit passed her by. The original plan of taking Rentaro to the past looked like it was going to fail. That meant she would have to go on the mission that she spent the last year coming up with all by herself.
それにしても、父さんってば、これはないよな。
She took it to herself and stuck her hand deep into the computer core. Inside was an external hard drive that clearly belonged to 2011, not 2036. Rentaro had put it here when her back was turned. One of the secondary touch panel monitors is displaying a warning that read "Foreign object detected in cockpit." These machines were capable of breaking through early 21st century camouflage in less than a second. It was clear from the way the fake wires were laid out that monitoring and data retrieval were not its objectives. He probably hidden it here because he didn't want anyone to find it. Maybe she should just pretend she didn't see it and leave it here until she was about to leave. As she pondered the best course of action, she heard the heavy door outside opening. Someone was here. Suzuha pulled her gun from its holster and looked out from the cockpit, toward the iron door that led into the building. She still remembered what happened with Kaguri the other day. It couldn't hurt to be careful. But when she saw who it was, she relaxed.
まゆ姉さん、珍しいね。ここへ来るなんて。
She put her gun away and jumped out the cockpit to welcome her. There you go. Oh. Did the game crash? Oh. The game did crash. Wow. Okay. Yeah, the game crashed. Wow, okay. Yeah, I guess that's... Okay. That's never happened before. Why did it crash? There we go. Alright, quick load. Oh, are we for real? That's weird, okay. Whatever, I guess. Alright.
低血圧魔法弾を
Sorry, it's gonna take a little bit. Just give me a couple minutes. I genuinely can't believe the game crashed. That's so crazy. Man, that's why I'm playing Bloons Tower Defense, bro. I genuinely still can't believe the game crashed on me. I'm so sick. Like, I'm actually disgusted.
毎回どの国へ行ってもいちいち調べられて時間がかかって仕方ないわ。
I'm sorry. I gotta load back. I gotta load back. Whoa, 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 whoa. You know what? No, it's fine. I already saw what happened. There you go. Hearing the sound effects is frying me. There you go.
Non.
Let me save here. Oh, sorry. There you go. There you go.
泣いてるの？何があった？
Suzuha had no idea why the always smiling Mayuri would be crying.
うしてみんなは教えてくれなかったのかな。
え？
クリスさんっていう人とマユシーとの本当のこと教えてくれなかったのかな。
She almost spoke, but quickly cut herself off. How does she hear, and from whom, the cruel truth that Mayuri's survival depended on courage Umaki's sister? There's something in the world Suzuha had wanted to see, less than the look on Mayuri's face when she discovered that truth.
誰に聞いたの？
But there was only a few people who knew the truth. Including herself, only Okabe, Daru, Barris, and Maho. And none of them would deliberately tell. Yeah, especially not Okabe. Are you crazy? In fact, they all hidden it from her for her sake.
オカリンと真帆さんが話しているのを聞いちゃった。
Then it was an accident after all.
ねえ、すずさん、お話聞いてもいい？ 2036年のマユシーとオカリンのこと。
Suzuha wasn't sure what to say. To be honest, she didn't want to say anything at all. It wasn't something that would make her feel better.
未来のことは知らない方が幸せだよ。
Another line of tears spilled down Mayuri's cheek.
マユシーなんてね、この世界にいても何の役にも立たないよ。だったらクリスさんの方が世界のためにもオカリンのためにもずっと必要なんだよ。
Ah, poor Mayuri. Suzuha suddenly felt like she was looking at the Mayuri she known in the future. She thought of the big sis Mayu that she'd seen ever since she was a little girl, and she couldn't refuse her request.
私の知ってる未来のまゆ姉さんも時々そう言ってた。そんな時は決まってぼんやりと空を眺めてるんだ。すごく寂しそうで切なそうだったよ。私もかがりもまゆ姉さんのそんな顔を見るのが辛かった。
かがり？
It was only then that she remembered she'd been keeping Kaguri a secret from Mayuri.
かがりっていう名前の女の子がいたんだ。繊細孤児でさ、まゆ姉さんが引き取ったんだ。だからまゆ姉さんの娘っていうことになる。
マユシーの娘。
優しくてでも強い子でね。まだこんなに小さいうちからいつも言ってた。ママを守るのは自分だって。そんな子だったから母親であるまゆ姉さんが寂しそうにしてるのはかなり答えてたはず。そういえば7月7日、今日って七夕って言うんだってね。私は子供の頃にまゆ姉さんから教わったんだ。織姫と彦星が年に一度会うことができる日だって。大気汚染がひどくて星なんて見えない時代だったけど、まゆ姉さんは言ってたよ。
雲が夜空を覆っていても
星は世界から消えちゃうわけじゃない。雲の向こうで変わらずに輝き続けてるの。だから一緒にお祈りしようね。
そんなまゆ姉さんの言葉が私やかがりには希望になったんだ。それだけは知っておいてほしい。少なくとも私やかがりにとってはまゆ姉さんが必要だった。それにオカリンおじさんだって死ぬまでまゆ姉さんのことを大事にしてたんだ。まゆ姉さんの幸せのことばかり考えていたんだ。
死ぬまで。
Maybe that was another cruel truth for her. But Suzuha decided she would hold nothing back now.
そうだよ。オカリンおじさんは今から15年後までしか生きられない。まゆ姉さんをかばって死ぬんだ。
嘘。
オカリンおじさんは最後にこう言ってたって父さんに後から聞いた。まゆりの命を助けることができて本当に良かった。自分はまゆりを守るために生きてきたんだから。
そんな。
Mayuri put both her hands over her mouth.
でもまゆ姉さんはそのことをずっと引きずっていたんだろうな。私たちには見えないところでこっそり七夕の空を見上げてつぶやいてた。
あの日私の彦星様が復活していたら全てが変わっていたのかな。あの日私の彦星様、私の。
Mayuri was repeating the words to herself. The tears were still pouring down on her face, but her sad cries finally came to a stop. She was still shaking, but her voice had gone quiet.
どういうことなのかな。
私今ならわかる気がする。1年前私オカリンおじさんの態度に本気でムカついたんだ。チャンスが目の前にあるのになんで諦めるんだって。そんなオカリンおじさんをかばって甘やかしてるまゆ姉さんのことも本当は許せなかったんだよね。でもさ、この1年ここで暮らしてみて感じたんだ。あの時間違ってたのは私の方だったって。今ならあの日のオカリンおじさんともっとちゃんと話せるかもしれない。
あの日。
それでうまく説得できるかどうかそこまでは自信ないんだけどね。
As the sun set in the west, the shadow of the time machine lengthened, and Suzuha's along with it.
私に残されたチャンスはあと一度だけ。それなら未来のまゆ姉さんの言葉にかけてみようと思う。マキセ・クリスが殺された日じゃなく、まゆ姉さんの言ってたあの日へ飛んでまゆ姉さんの望みを叶えられるかどうか試してみる。
まゆしの望み。
Suzuha gently rubbed Mayuri's tired little shoulders.
それがシュタインズゲートへ向かう鍵だって信じてみる。シュタインズゲートを開くことができるのは彦星をやめちゃった普通の星じゃなくってまゆ姉さんの彦星しかいないような気がするからさ。 つまり私が新たに考案したミッションは彦星の復活。父さん流に言うならオペレーションアルタイルとかオペレーションアークライトとか
Something like that, yeah.
それともアルタイルとアークライトを結ぶって意味でオペレーションデネブかな。父さんほどのセンスは私にはないみたいだ。
Mayuri tried to draw herself up as best as she could on wobbling legs.
すずさん、そのオペレーションマユシーにやらせて。
Suzuha stared at the girl in front of her, unable to believe what she just heard.
これは危険な賭けだ。私の考えが間違ってて失敗するだけかもしれない。タイムマシンにも限界が来てて、いつ制御不能になるかわからない。そのまま消滅してしまうかもしれない。
それでもお願い、マユシーだってラボメンなんだよ。オカリンとダル君に助けてもらってばっかりなのはもう嫌だよ。
Mayuri rubbed her eyes hard and wiped away her tears. Life was slowly returning to her frail body.
マユシーね、オカリンのことが好き。多分クリスさんと同じぐらい。違う、絶対にクリスさんに負けないくらいずっと大好き。だけど私は法院京馬がもっと大好きなの。私がおばあちゃんを亡くしてこの世界から消えてなくなっちゃいそうになってた時、そんな私に向かってこの世界にずっといろって言って救ってくれたの。それが彼なの。私の彦星様なの。私ね、もう一度彼に会いたい。あの偉そうな高笑いをまた聞きたい。たとえ私が織姫様になれないって分かってても、それでも私にとっての彦星様はこれまでもこれからもずっと彼以外にはいないんだもん。法院京馬に会いたいよ。
The girl who could never be Orihime shouted all of her feelings to the world at the top of her lungs. And right in that instant, Suzuha heard a sound from her cell phone that she never heard before.
これは
It was the sound of a video message. When she saw the sender and the subject line, Suzuha gasped.
これ未来からのムービーメール。
I stuck my hand against the wall of the Brontu workshop to catch my breath. There was no sign of Mayuri. I got a May Queen Yanyan squared into any shop I could imagine her visiting and had no luck. Maho came back. She was out of breath too.
ダメ。辺りをぐるって回ってみたけど見当たらないわ。
The panic was threatening to make me lose control. Where did you go, Mayuri?
誰見つかったか。
I asked her to stay behind and call all of her friends and people she knew.
オカリン、 それが
どうした？
電話つながらないんだよ。
前よりなら俺も何度もかけてみたが電源を切ってるみたいで。
違うんだ。マヨシだけじゃなくて他のどこにもつながらない。つうかずっとスマホが圏外になったままでさ。
なんだって。
I took on my own phone.
俺のも圏外だ。
私もだわ。
The lab had never suffered from bad signal before. We went up to the roof and even tried holding our phones up to the sky, but the result was the same.
屋上でもダメだ。
外に出ても繋がらないわ。
Daru looked for the news on the internet. Thankfully, the internet connection was still active.
速報出た。
There was an article on the top page of Taboo talking about a large-scale cell phone service outage.
え、つうかなんぞこれ。秋葉原一帯の基地局が全キャリア故障。
全キャリアってそんなことありえるの？
It didn't seem possible to me, not under normal circumstances anyway. The events of a year ago in the Alpha World line flashed in my mind. That night when Mayuri was mercilessly killed and all the safety I've ever believed in was stripped away. That night when all the pain began started with a bomb threat at Akihabara Station that Akihabara Station had shut down the train system.
人為的な工作。
Something terrible was about to engulf Akihabara. That was the feeling I had. Akihabara, I keep saying it wrong. I tried my best to fight back the flashback. Now wasn't a time to be scared. I needed to find Mayuri. I couldn't leave her alone out there. I gritted my teeth to fight off all the trauma I was carrying and raised my head.
ダル、ネットは生きてるんだよな。
あ、うん。だから LINE 経由でルカシやアマネシとは連絡取り合ってる。
Okay, so they should be willing to help look for
俺
Mayuri.
ももう一度辺りを探してくる。
待った。実はもう一つ気になることが。電波障害のことをアットちゃんで調べようとしたらさ、現在進行形でお買い手がクラックされてて、そのクラッキングしてるやつがさ、ほら。
Daru brought up that channel page on his screen for me to see. I don't know why it could possibly matter, but decided to take a look anyway.
これは
Salieri's neighbor. There you go. Yeah, because I gotta do these. Bop, bop, bop. Alright, cracking. A term used to describe actions such as illegally accessing a network-linked computer or modifying its data. Often confused with hacking, but originally hacking was described as using and investigating a piece of software. Cracking, however, refers to a malicious unauthorized activity. Most times when the term hacking is used by the media, this is what they actually mean. Salieri's neighbor. That was the nickname I used to make contact with Curry Gohan and Kamehameha. I decided to leave the explanation for later and clicked on the thread. It was all comments by a single person. Well, shoot, game, at least let me read it. Yeah, let me see.
栗ご飯とカメハメハ。
It's so stupid. That's such a dumb name. To Salieri's neighbor, it appears that we twins will now be temporarily driven from the place where we belong, so I may not be able to come back here anymore. Our Father in heaven has developed a way to force open our most secret places. Now we should become good children, his children who cannot tell lies. And Nesu will be forced to tell him of the secrets of controlling time and where those secrets lie. It is a great sorrow to me that I cannot protect those secrets. I hoped we would be good friends, but this is probably goodbye. So lastly, I'd like you to pass a message to the person I respect most. I always regarded myself as an essentially ordinary intellect. To tell her that she's always been the person I wanted to be, tell her that she was the real Amadeus. The first comment had gone up an hour ago. After that, it was just an endless string of meaningless numbers and letters.
これはどういうこと？
Mahoyo was looking at the screen from the side and evidently sensed that something was amiss with the text.
アマデウスだ。
え？
こいつはアマデウスのクリスなんだよ。クリスに何かがあった。
This is some kind of message. She was trying to contact me
時を
with it.
司る秘密。
タイムマシンじゃね？
タイムマシンの情報が誰かに漏れたのか。
つうか、なんでアマデウスがタイムマシンの情報知ってんの？
Did I? I didn't think I told her when I was a tester, but there's no time to think about that
ヒ
now.
ヤジョさん、アマデウスにアクセスできるか。
規則違反になるけど、そんなこと言ってる場合じゃなさそうね。橋田さん、その PC 借りていい？
Mahoyo took Dara's seat to use his PC to access the Brain Science Institute's computers. She put in her ID, Salieri, and her password. She pushed the enter key, but Amadeus didn't
い
hear.
つもと違うわ。どういうこと？
Confused, she typed a series of commands to the PC with a speed that rivaled Dara's. But no matter what she did, the Amadeus program didn't appear on her screen. When she finished accessing every server at the Institute, she stared at the computer and bit her lip.
こんなバカなことって
どうした？
ないの。アマデウスのプログラムが記憶データごとどこにも存在していない。
Just like the message from Kuriko on Kamehameha.
誰？ハッキングしろ。脳科学研究所だけじゃなく、ビクトル・コンドリア大学にあるデータを全部こじ開けてくれ。サーバーから個人の PC まで全部だ。
オキドキ。
Wow, he.
ヒヤジョさ
I
ん
will
の
let
協
you
力
down,
して
top
くれ。
dog.
頼む。
ええ。
But the answer was the same. Not only the Amadeus, Kurisu, but the Mahoyo as well, were nowhere to be found in the Victor Condria servers. There was no trace of them. Their very existence had been erased.
どこか別の場所に移されたとか？
そんなの無理だわ。アマデウスシステムに関してそんな管理者権限を持ってるのはレスキネン教授だけよ。
レスキネン教授。
My mind flashed back to the message from Kuriko on Kamehameha. Who was the Our Father in Heaven whom Amadeus Kurisu had spoken of? If Amadeus considered anyone a father, it would be Dr. Leskinen.
まさかレスキネン教授が。
Dr. Leskinen.
憶測で物を言わないで。それよりも教授の ID とパスがクラックされたと考える方がよっぽど現実的よ。
レスキネン教授に連絡をつける方法はあるか？
The phones weren't working, and there was no way to tell when he'd see an email or if he'd respond. Mahoyo was thinking hard, but it didn't seem like she was having any luck. I was concerned about Mayuri, but I couldn't ignore the danger that was right in front of me.
とりあえずラジカンへ行ってくる。クリスの警告通りなら
僕も行く。
Oh. Sorry.
とりあえずラジカンへ行ってくる。クリスの警告通りなら狙われるのはあそこだ。お前とヒヤジョウさんはここで情報収集だ。マユリが戻ってくるかもしれないから。ただし何かあったらすぐに逃げろよ。
I gave my orders and ran out of the lab towards the radio building. Suza hit the play button on her smartphone's video display. The video was heavily compressed and covered in static, but she recognized the person that appeared. It was a face she'd known her whole life, a face that had been with her both in the past and in the future. The man who she still remembered holding her up in the air as a child was probably about 35 in the video.
やあ、鈴葉、元気かい？父さんだよ。こちらは2025年だ。いろいろなことを君に託してしまって本当に申し訳なく思う。許してくれ。頼む。このムービーメールが届いたということは、君は、いや、君とマユシはシュタインズゲートへの道をまた一つ見つけてくれたということだ。つまり計画は次の段階に移行したわけさ。なぜ最初から全部指示しなかったのかと君は怒るかもしれないな。でも指示しなかったんじゃないんだ。できなかったんだよ。君が出発した世界線の僕はこれから話すオペレーションを計画していなかったはずだからね。もう気づいているかもしれないが、君とマユシの選択によって世界線はまた少し変動したんだ。つまり僕も君が出発した世界線とは違う別の世界線上の橋田至るということになる。でも鈴葉、どうか勘違いしないでほしいんだ。僕はどんな世界線においても娘ラブだからね。ちなみにどうだい？比べてみてどっちのパパの方がダンディーかな。僕は最近筋トレを始めたんだけどさ。ふふん。
誰？くだらないこと言ってないでさっさと作戦内容を話せ。
まったくだわ。どうせまた三日坊主で終わるんだから、どうでもいい報告はしないで。
録画できる時間が終わっちゃうにゃん。
まあまあ、そうせかすなって。つうことでこのムービーメールの本来の目的に移ろう。オペレーションアークライトの詳細を伝える。これは本当に一瞬のミスも許されないギリギリの戦いになる。心して聞くんだ。いいね。
Suzette paused the video there. If he was telling her to pay attention, it must be important. She was going to memorize it all. She needed to calm down. To be honest, getting a video from her dad in 2025 had made her really excited. It felt like her father was telling her that the plan she'd come up with on her own was the right one. That's why she needed to pay careful attention. Miri was standing by herself, typing something into her phone as fast as she could. When the video had arrived, she told Mayuri that they may have to leave for the past today. There must have been some reason the video was sent today at this time. That's how it seemed to Suzuha.
何してるの？
あ、すずさん、どう？今日出発することになりそう？
作戦概要はこれから確認するつもり。
そっか。あのね、もし今日出発するってなったら、マユシーは行方不明になっちゃうわけでしょ？心配かけたくないから、お父さんとお母さんと、あとお友達みんなにメールを書いておこうと思って。
オカリンおじさんくらいには直接伝えられる時間があればいいけどね。
She She'll be done going over the mission, deciding on a course of action by sunset, probably.
オカリンにもメール書いたから大丈夫。
メールでいいの？
Mayuri smiled and nodded. There was no more tears in her eyes, but you could still see wet lines drawn down her soft pink cheeks.
なんだか恥ずかしいから。でもね、せっかく書いたメールだけど送れないかもしれないなーって今ちょっと困ってたところなのです。
なんで？
電波圏外になってるんだ。場所が悪いのかな。
県外？
Suzuha looked at the screen on Mayuri's phone. There wasn't a single bar in the antenna.
おかしい。この場所ならいつだって電波は入ってた。
Suzuha took out her own phone to double check.
私のもだ。
When she saw that Mayuri was using a different cell phone carrier than her, she frowned.
嫌な予感がする。
She told Mayuri to hide behind a time machine and silently moved up against the iron door leading to the stairs. She opened it a crack, taking care not to let it creak. She looked inside the building. It was as quiet as ever. There was nothing on the floor below but a room for events and some storerooms. So on weekdays like this, it was always quiet.
気のせいか。
She tilted her head sideways as she softly tried to close the door. At Mayuri's scream, she turned around just in time to see armed agents in camouflage jumping over the fence. One of them had grabbed Mayuri.
外壁をよじ登ってきたのか。
Suzuha deeply regretted her mistake. She was well aware that someone could try to come up the walls, but the video from her dad had made her so excited she lowered her guard. There was about 30 men, all carrying small assault rifles. With Mayuri as their hostage, Suzuha couldn't do anything.
銃を置いてそのまま地面に伏せろ。手は頭の上だ。
One of the men gave her an order in a cold voice.
抵抗すればこの女の命は保証できない。
He pulled Mayuri close and put the gun to her head, then flipped off the safety.
くっそー。
She had no choice but to obey. Suzuha took the gun out of her holster and put it on the ground, then took a pose where she couldn't resist.
喋らないで。こいつらいざとなれば本気で姉さんを殺すよ。私は大丈夫だから。
From the way they moved, she could easily tell they were veteran professionals. That meant that they were certainly after the time machine and probably well aware that only Suzuha could operate it. That, Suzuha decided, meant they wouldn't kill her if they didn't have to. The man who had spoken to her first, who was probably the leader, knelt down next to her. She was searched roughly to make sure she wasn't carrying any other weapons.
これでも一応女なんだ。少しは気を使えよ。
They took the other small pistol she carried for emergencies, as well as several other different knives.
目標2と目標3確保。そっちは？
The leader spoke to the group of men gathering around the time machine.
目標1確保。ロックがかかっていて、すべてエラーで弾かれます。
Several of the men had gone inside the time machine as well. Leaving the hatch open had been Suzuha's own mistake, but still, it upset her to see them inside the time machine.
何をしても無駄だ。そいつは私じゃないということを聞かない。
立て。
The leader kicked her with the heel of his boot.
手はそのままゆっくりとだ。少しでも余計な動きをしたら即座に人質を殺す。
she stood up, her hands were handcuffed behind her. They prodded her from behind to move to the next machine.
生体認証だな。
そうだ。ただし私の静脈や指紋をコピーしても無駄だ。手を切り落としたり目玉をくり抜いたって認証には使えない。2036年のシステムはそんなに間抜けじゃない。
The men in camo seemed aware of everything she said. None of them seemed surprised or irritated.
教授はどうした？
The leader asked the man who was pointing the gun at Mayuri.
現在こちらに向かっているところです。
目標1は目標2とセットだ。洗脳しないと無理だと伝えろ。
Susan gritted her teeth when she heard the word brainwashing. She had seen many of her friends in Valkyrie undergo this cruel procedure and then be sent back as spies before turning into vegetables. The leader turned toward Susan.
洗脳の行き着く先は分かっているはずだ。教授は薬などは使わない。直接脳をいじられることになる。そうなる前に素直に我々に協力した方が利口だと思うが。
教授か。
Where'd she come from? Where'd she'd come from, an old doctor with that name had led a brainwashing team that had attempted to destroy Valkyrie. Suza hated him more than anyone else. They hadn't used drugs either. It was safe to assume that both professors were the same person.
わかった。
She nodded.
言うことを聞く。だがこれじゃ無理だ。
Suza jangled the cuffs from behind her.
手錠は外す。ただし抵抗すればそっちの女が死ぬ。
There was still a gun pointed at Mayuri's head. Even if she tried to resist it, it would be impossible to save Mayuri from this many professional soldiers. When she went inside the cockpit, she used her biometrics to bypass the lock and brought up the control console. Lights came on all across the machine, and she could hear a low rumbling.
よし降りろ。あとは我々が調査する。
あんたたちに理解できるとは思えないけどね。
As Suzuha left the cockpit, the leader turned his gaze toward a particular cluster of men, which seemed to be engineers. That was the moment she was waiting for. Her hand had wandered below the console for just a moment when she left the cockpit. She hid some knives there. Without making a sound, she threw it at the leader. The knives pierced his throat. He went down so quickly he hadn't even had the time to scream. She quickly readied another knife and darted between the men in camo. Her target was the man pointing a gun at Mayuri's head. She dropped her hips low to the ground. In an instant, she moved behind him and slit his throat. Blood poured out onto an astonished Mayuri, but there was no time to worry about her. She grabbed his rifle and fired a few shots to force him to the ground, then grabbed Mayuri's hand and ran behind the time machine. The plan had gone well so far, but she had seriously underestimated how well-trained these men were. The second-in-command quickly moved to the front and worked to re-establish control. All she had was a knife and a gun she'd stolen, and she needed to protect Mayuri, a non-combatant. She was still facing more than 25 active enemies. Whatever the right way to get out of this was, she couldn't find it. The time machine was still active, she couldn't escape because she couldn't leave it here. One of the men fired several rounds towards her, which bounced off the side of the time machine. And then Mayuri's head flew back as if she'd been struck. A spurt of blood came out. Her cute face was turning blood red. One of the rounds had grazed her after it had ricocheted. She was clutching herself with her arms, and her expression was completely blank. Her tiny body was shaking. Suzuha couldn't blame her. She fired back at the enemy, but they kept drawing closer.
いろんな戦場を渡り歩いてきたけど、ここまで追い詰められたのは初めてか。
was a typo, I just realized. But I don't think I've ever been seeing things get this bad, yeah. Ben shouldn't have been there. The time machine's maintenance task was right in front of her. When she saw that it was there, she visualized her last option in her mind.
あれを開ければ内側からマシンを爆破することはできる。
If she did that, all of her plans would be ruined. The path to Steins would be forever closed. That didn't mean she was cold-blooded enough to sacrifice Mayuri. If the world lines were going to converge, maybe Mayuri wouldn't die here at all. What her father had said during his video message bothered her.
もう気づいているかもしれないが、君とマユシの選択によって世界線はまた少し変動したんだ。つまり僕も君が出発した世界線とは違う別の世界線上の橋田至るということになる。
Which meant that Suzuha had no proof that Mayuri would be alive in 2036 now. Had the world line really changed? Of course, for the sake of Operation how do you pronounce this? Akio? Well, I guess the way that they pronounced it in the game was Arclight, but it's not spelled like that, so why would it? How do you? Well, it is a what's it called? A constellation, so I guess that's. Is it pronounced Arclight? Yeah, it is Aquila. Okay. But for some reason they said it Arclight. Alright, Aquila. I guess I'm gonna say Arclight. Whatever. Of course, for the sake of Operation Arclight, she hoped it had. But that meant she wouldn't be able to Aquila. That sounds so weird. But that meant she wouldn't be able to move from this place.
最悪の事態を想定しろ。
The worst case scenario, that would be these men taking the time machine. They could turn the world line into something even worse than the ones Suzuha had experienced. It might become a world line where not only Mayuri's life wasn't safe, but Dari's wasn't either. If that was going to happen, she had to make her choice fast. She kept a careful eye on the men, and as soon as she saw an opening, she opened the maintenance hatches biometric lock. She could see part of the engine which is still giving off a quiet rumble. She turned her gun sights on it. Fortunately, the unit that created the curved black hole still wasn't active. Even if she blew up the machine here, it probably wouldn't cause serious damage to the space-time continuum. As soon as she saw that, she went to pull the trigger. Mayuri's voice stopped her.
止めるな。もう決めたことだ。
Mayuri had stopped her once before, but once again she hesitated for just another instant. On the battlefield, that instant can decide your fate. She took a quick look around, and then she froze. Mixed in with the men in camo was a girl in a dark motorcycle suit and a helmet.
あいつ、カガリ。
It was a Kaguri who had leaked this place's location to them. She was well aware of Kaguri's abilities after their 2 battles. If she wasn't completely in control of herself, she'd be killed instantly. She talked to herself.
私が生き残るのは諦めざるを得ないな。
How many would she have to take with her in order to give Mayuri a chance to escape? Right now, the only thing she could afford to think about was getting Mayuri back to Rentaro Okabe. But just as she made her decision, she felt Kaguri staring at her, or more precisely, the blood dripping down Mayuri's forehead. And just after that, Kaguri did something she hadn't expected at all.
ママに何をした？お前たち、ママに何をした？
There was a scream. No, it was a howl of an enraged beast. And then the slaughter began. Kaguri grabbed the second-in-command's head with her left hand. With her right, she steadied her rifle. After she fired, there was very little left of his head. The rest of him dropped to the ground.
なんだ、何をしている。
She slammed the piece of tattered flesh that had once been a man's head into the ground, and with no warning at all, leaped from one screaming man to another. She fired her gun into every one of them. Even when her targets were already soaked in a sea of blood, she kept firing until their limbs were blown apart into unrecognizable rags. Some of them tried shooting to her to protect themselves, but no matter where she was struck, Kagri didn't even flinch. When her magazine ran dry, she drew forth long military-style cleavers. Holding one in each hand, she used them in her military combat training to slaughter anyone she saw. Their entrails were scattered all over the twilight rooftop, covering her whole body in blood and bits of flesh. Suzuha held Mayuri's head tight to her chest. Mayuri was shaking from fear, but she did as she was told and clamped her hands down over her ears. Even so, she could probably still hear the sounds of ripping flesh and shattering bone. Even Suzuha had gone stone cold in shock. During all her time in combat, she'd never seen a one-sided slaughter like this. She'd experienced this when they fought, but Kagri seemed to feel no fear or pain. She simply focused all her energy on killing her opponent. It was often said that humans unconsciously avoid using all their muscle power to protect their own bodies, but Kagri seemed to like that capability. Just now, she stabbed the man who turned to run from her in the back, then tossed his huge body to the ground with only a single arm. She then kicked his stomach from below and ruptured his organs, killing him. Finally, after several, perhaps a dozen or more, of the men had been killed, what remained of the squad started to scream orders at one another. With terrifying reflexes, she dodged between her shots and brutally murdered several more. But at last, a hail of gunfire struck her left hand and a knife she was holding fell to the ground. No, that wasn't it. It wasn't a knife that fell. It was her entire left hand. The shock caused her body to stagger back. Someone screamed in a voice that lacked any of the pride and bravery a soldier is supposed to possess. A second. Several more bullets dug into her body. Parts of the motorcycle suit ripped open, and the helmet cracked. Blood that was clearly her own, not that of the men she had killed, began to pour out. At last, she fell into a pile of corpses.
Yes!
They must have thought they finally had her. One of the survivors put his gun down to finish her, just as he was about to pull the trigger. Oh goodness. Her bestial roar and a man's terrified scream overlapped in a horrible cacophony. She forced herself to leap up and brought the back of the remaining cleaver down on his arm, knocking him back. An instant later, the knife slit his throat and ended his life. The survivors began to flee in terror.
マユルだってそのうちひょっこりラボに戻ってくる。
When I reached the radio building, I realized that many people in the crowd of pedestrians were holding their phones up to the sky. There was evidently no service near the station either. I took a moment to catch my breath as I looked up at the radio building. I could hear what sounded like a distant explosion. It wasn't just one. The explosions were coming in a series. Several of the people around me were glancing at their surroundings, confused by these unfamiliar sounds. And then I realized that was gunfire. I remembered the sounds I heard during the battle between Stern's rounders and the Russian military. The sounds were coming from the roof of the radio building. Had I not made it in time? I went into the radio building. For some reason, the elevator was under maintenance and turned off. I had no choice but to take the stairs. My heart was pounding so fast that I thought it would burst, and I tripped several times due to how tense I was. I stumbled again and again on the stairs. How many times had I come up these stairs feeling like this? Cursing my lack of endurance, I headed for the top floor. Once I got to the 7th floor, I ran into someone I hoped I wouldn't see. No, my guess is that I run into him was right. I wish that I wasn't, but...
いやー、リンターロ。まさかこんなに早く君が来るとは思わなかったよ。
So Dr. Leskinen seemed Dr. Leskinen seemed perturbed when he saw my face.
どうしてここに？
少し落ち着きなさい。そんなに息が切れていたのでは話もできないよ。
どうしてここにいるんです？アマデウスはどうなったんです？
君に頼んだサンプリングテストは半年前に終わっている。話すことはできないな。
That was his answer. Even though Amadeus had disappeared, Leskinen was extremely calm. There was no sign of him trying to deal with the problem, and instead of being in his office, he was here. That was all I needed to know.
クリスが俺に送ってきたメッセージの内容は本当だったんですね。
The father that she'd spoken of was Leskinen after all.
クリスや魔法どうしたんです？彼女たちの記憶データを解析してタイムマシンに関するデータを取り出すつもりなんでしょう。
驚いたな。クリスはそこまで君に話してしまったのか。監視していたつもりだったが、いつの間にそんな真似を。
Leskinen seemed truly shocked, which meant he hadn't noticed that Amadeus Kurisu was an ad channeler, and that she'd spoken to me there. And then Leskinen took out a gun and pointed at me.
君は少し踏み込みすぎたようだ。
あなたは何者なんだ？
科学者だよ。だが科学者も実践授業ではないのでね。君はストラテジック・フォーカス社というアメリカの民間情報機関を知っているかな？
ストラテジック・フォーカス社、アメリカのストラトフォーカ。
I read about them on a conspiracy theory website. I remembered reading that they acquired top secret information on Russian ballistic missiles that even the CIA couldn't get, and then sold it. The result was the destruction of the CIA's reputation. At the same time, the total reorganization of Russia's military strategy. I'd even heard rumors that during the Gulf and Iraq wars, they obtained information about the warring countries faster than anyone and spread it as needed.
世界から影の CIA などと呼ばれているのが私たちだよ。
So he was going to use Amadeus for military purposes. Was everything he said at the seminar just platitudes and lies?
まあ、私のことはどうでもいいだろう。それよりリンターロ、 克美から聞いたのだが、君も例の新型脳炎を発症しているそうだね。それどころか、新型脳炎そのもののメカニズムについて何か知っているらしいじゃないか。実に興味深い。君の持つその情報をぜひ提供してくれないか。簡単な施術を受けてくれるだけでいいんだ。そうすれば私は君を助手として迎え入れてもいい。
For some reason, my whole body broke out in goosebumps at the word procedure. Dr. Lusk and I knew the man with the childlike, mischievous heart and deep scientific curiosity, the man who'd been so kind to me, the man I respected, was gone. In his place was the cruel scientific fundamentalist who thought nothing of human lives or hearts as he pointed a gun at me. Or was this who he truly was? There you go. Suddenly, he seemed like a terrifying unknown. He took a step towards me, and then another fierce gunfight broke out above. Leskinen clicked his tongue at the sound. He glanced towards the stairs. I took advantage of the distraction. Luckily, I was still on the staircase. I tackled his legs as hard as I could, and he lost his balance and fell. He hit his head hard on one of the steps, and after a moment's jerk, stopped moving at all. He might be dead, but I didn't care anymore. I've become a murderer many times over already. When I opened the door, what I saw was a vision from the heart of hell itself. There was blood everywhere, and bodies too. In the middle of the sea of blood was a girl in a motorcycle suit and helmet, covered in crimson as she lay on the ground. She held a giant cleaver. I could see instantly that she was responsible for this disaster. Her shoulders moved up and down a little, so evidently she was still alive. I approached the woman, trying my best not to throw up from the stench.
大丈夫ママ
I could hear her voice from beneath the cracked, broken helmet. Yeah, they made sure not to show, like, the missing hand. I looked closer and saw that some of the blood was her own. Her body was racked by bullet wounds, and her left hand was completely gone. It was a miracle that she had somehow survived all that. She didn't seem to notice me as she slowly crawled through the blood. I followed her gaze and saw Mayuri huddled behind the time machine. Suzuha seemed to be unhurt, but there was blood on Mayuri's face. I hadn't expected to see her here, and I was worried about her wound. More than anything, I was glad that she was safe. She raised her face when she heard my voice, but the next moment her eyes looked down on the girl in the motorcycle suit. She saw the thing crawling toward her and screamed.
ママ違うのこれはだってかがりは本当は人殺しなんてするつもりじゃなくってただママを守ろうとして
Kaguri? Did she say Kaguri? It was only then I realized that the girl in the motorcycle suit was the Kaguri Shina that Suzuha had been looking for.
なさいママ
Suzuha yelled, unable to take anymore.
もういいから動くな死ぬぞお前かがりはねママに怖い思いをさせようなんて思ってなかったんだよ本当だよかがりはただママを助けなくちゃってだからママお願いかがりを嫌いにならないでお願いママごめんなさい許して
At last, her strength failed and she collapsed. I returned to my senses and ran to her before Suzuha could get there.
おい大丈夫か
Her breathing was wheezy and shallow. One of the bullets had pierced her lungs. Okay, alright. I thought taking off her helmet would help her breathe, so I put my hand on it to remove it. But she grabbed my hand and pushed it away.
やめて取らないで。ママと鈴葉お姉ちゃんの前ではお願い。岡部さん。
Her voice and the way she talked. I realized who this girl called Kagura Shino was. I looked close and saw I recognized her.
そんな君はなぜ
オカリンおじさん、かがりは？
来るな
I quickly motioned to for Suzuha to keep her distance.
こっちは任せろ。お前は前よりを頼む。前よりの傷は大丈夫なのか確認してくれ。
I'll explain this once once we finish this. I have some thoughts about this. She went back to Mayuri and started to look at her wounds. Mayuri was covering her face and trying to not look at the
大丈夫。
bodies.
マユ姉さんの傷は深くない。
I relaxed a little when I heard that.
よかった。ママ、無事だったんだ。よかった。
Kaguri's voice was a whisper as I cradled her in my arms. And then she slowly closed her eyes. Her breathing got weaker.
しっかりしろ。君はなんで？
大丈夫。心配しないで。私、こうなっても痛くも苦しくもないから。いつも神様の声が聞こえるの。君は痛くならないよ、苦しくならないよって。だから全然岡部さんには伝えておくね。本物は何も知らないです。3年前からヨーロッパに留学中だから。教授が私を秋葉原へ送り込むために裏で手を回して、本物は本当に何も知らない。
教授だって。
Does she mean
この世界線では本当は来年なんですよ。芦田さんと本物が出会うのは。
Kaguri opened her eyes a little once more as she looked toward the time machine, toward Mayuri and
大
Suzuha.
丈夫。きっと本物も芦田さんのこと好きになります。私と同じように。言っちゃった。誰にも内緒ですよ。
And this time, her smile still shining in her eyes, they closed for real. With one final shudder, the strength left her body. Her life faded away in my hands. There was so much I wanted to ask her. Why she had appeared before us using that name. Why had she? There were so many things I didn't understand. But Kagura Shina's life ended in
オ
that
カリンお
moment.
じさん、かがりは無事？
I came back to my senses when I heard her voice. If I told her about Kaguri's death, it would cause her a lot of mental stress. That wasn't a good idea. Right now, I need to do something about the time machine as fast as possible.
大丈夫だ。 この子を俺が病院へ連れて行く。
I slung Kaguri's body around my shoulder and stood
鈴
up.
葉、急いでタイムマシンを停止させて偽装しろ。
もう遅いよ。
Before I could open the door, a huge shadow appeared from within. He wasn't dead, but he must have taken a lot of damage to the head because his face was the color of clay, and one of his eyes wasn't focusing.
すぐにここは戦場になる。アメリカもロシアも日本も動き出してしまった。一度回り出した歯車はもう止められない。カガリがもっと早く我々に報告していれば、ここまで事態は悪化することもなかったものを。
Okay, yeah, we're almost at 3 hours. I see. Luskin knew about Kaguri, which meant that I was right. Isuza spoke before I
そう
could.
か、お前が教授か。かがりを洗脳したのはお前だな。
そうなんですか。あなたはそういう人だったんですか。
別にこの私が何かしたわけじゃない。
Luskin didn't try to
む
deny
し
it.
ろ10年ほど前、路頭に迷っていた彼女を助けてここまで育つよう援助してあげたんだよ。
援助って、普通に生活してたら彼女がこんな風になるはずないじゃないか。
そんなに怒鳴らないでくれないか。頭が割れそうにいたもんだ。嘘じゃない。彼女は自分の方から私に接触してきた。整形までしてこの町に潜り込んだのも彼女のプランだよ。何でも頭の中の神様が全て教えてくれるんだそうだ。最初私はホームレスの子供が食べ物欲しさにくだらない作り話をしているんだと思ったんだよね。彼女の脳や記憶を調べてみると非常に興味深く素晴らしいことが分かった。その神様というのはね、
And even as his face twisted in pain, he smiled
そ
proudly.
の神様というのはなんと未来の2036年の私だったんだよ。
あんたは本当のマッドサイエンティストだ。
Suddenly, I heard a siren down below. Just hearing the siren made me feel uneasy. I never heard a sound like it
なんだ
before.
これ。
ゲリラ攻撃情報、ゲリラ攻撃情報。当地域にゲリラ攻撃の可能性があります。屋内に避難し、テレビ、ラジオをつけてください。
I heard that announcement coming from the speakers on the street. There you go. So it seems like 2 tips. Guerrilla attack information. One type of instantaneous national alert, J alert system. In case of an emergency like a large-scale disaster or armed attack, the J alert system uses communication satellites to automatically activate all disaster warning systems in the country and warn the populace. When activated, the J alert triggers a series of loudspeakers and sirens placed all over the country, or all around the country, excuse me. There are several different types, such as an emergency earthquake alert, Tokai earthquake alert, tsunami alert, eruption alert, weather alert, ballistic missile alert, air raid alert, guerrilla and special forces attacks, or attack alerts, and terrorism alert. A guerrilla attack. I could hear several helicopters in the sky above me. Oh, did that announcement count as well? No, it didn't. Okay. Their engines were clearly more powerful than the ones in the media's news choppers. I recognized the sounds from the time I spent in a wartime world line.
言っただろう。ここは間もなくタイムマシンを奪い合う戦場と化すんだ。
第三次世界大戦が始まるのか。
まさかこの町の住民も自分たちの都市の中心から世界戦争が始まるとは夢にも思っていないだろうね。
And then Leska leaned up against the wall, sat down, and stopped moving. Whether he passed out or got into a coma from the brain damage, I didn't have time to find out, nor did he really care. It was like the air in the city had gotten heavier. That's how it felt. A chill ran down my spine. I had spent a month at war in that world line, and the same future was about to begin here. Something like that couldn't happen in Japan. It was like a TV show or something. But I knew instinctively that this wasn't fiction. There had been signs since 6 months ago. Here in Akihabara in Tokyo in Japan. Yeah. Spies and soldiers from all around the world have been working in the shadows. So I'd known this would happen. By refusing Suzu's request and choosing the world line where Mayuri survived, I doomed over 5 billion people. I was the one who chose this. It was me. I looked and saw that Suzuha was pushing Mayuri into the time machine.
こうなったら私たちはこのまま過去へジャンプする。かがりのこと頼んだよ。
Suzuha had no idea that Kaguri was already dead. She leaped into the cockpit. I raced over and grabbed onto the hatch, then looked inside.
過去ってまさか1年前あの日。
急ってわけじゃないんだ。
It's not suddenly, yeah. This has been a year of preparation.
過去ってまさか1年前あの日へ行くのか。こんな急に。
それにあの日へは飛ばない。
She was tapping commands into the console as she spoke.
あの日へは飛ばないってどういう。
ちょっとまゆ姉さんを借りるよ。
Mayuri was already strapped into a seat, just like I was when I jumped over a year ago with Suzuha.
マユリ、お前。
I heard fierce gunfire and screams in the distance. It looked like some of the spies had started fighting each other. Kaguri may have just wiped out a force from one nation, but an army from an entirely different one was still coming. Mayuri handed me a smartphone. I took it without thinking.
ちょっと待て。なんでお前が行くんだ。お前が行ったって結果は同じだ。何もできない。それに今飛んだら戻ってこられない。違うの。
オカリンじゃダメなの。これはね、マユシーの役目だから。
わからない。俺にはさっぱりわからない。頼む、降りてくれマユリ。お前まで因果の輪から外れたら、俺は何のためにこの世界線を選んだのか。
オカリン。
Mayuri gently rubbed my cheek, as she smiled sadly. She softly pushed my shoulder. It threw me off balance and made me let go of the hatch. Then the hatch closed. It was too late. By the time I grabbed back on, the hatch was sealed shut. The door control was biometric. Only Suzuha could open it now. The time machine started to roar. A pale light began to gather around it. I've seen this before, in the Alpha World fight. Then, or just then, a group of armed men kicked open a door and swarmed onto the roof. They were highly trained military operatives. And then an attack helicopter descended from the skies. The soldiers started to shoot at it, but the helicopter seemed to ignore them as it slowly hovered in place. I realized the powerful rocket launchers on either side of its body were aimed at me. No, at the time machine. It couldn't be. Oh my gosh. But my worst fears were realized. The helicopter fired its rockets. They headed straight for the time machine. It was still there, shrouded in light. The second I yelled, the powerful blast blew me back. The next thing I knew, I was crawling on the ground. I saw that... Okay, whatever. I saw that some of the soldiers had already joined a mountain of corpses on the ground, and some of them were still shooting at the helicopter. I stood up as fast as I could. My whole body felt like it was on fire. My skin was burnt in places. My clothes had been blasted off. No, my own problems didn't matter. What about the time machine? I looked up toward where the time machine had been. If it had jumped in time, it should have been able to avoid the rockets. But... yeah. There were scraps of metal everywhere. I could tell they belonged to the time machine. Had I not made it in time?
Suzuha. Mayuri?
I looked around in the cloud of smoke.
Na, Mayuri. Doko da?
Mayuri! Suzuha! Henji o shite kure!
There were bodies everywhere, but I couldn't see Mayuri or Suzuha. I couldn't even tell if they were alive or dead. There were no bodies. They simply vanished. After that, things went far beyond my power to control. Brutal battles took place on the ground and in the sky of Akihabara. I seen footage of war in the Middle East on the news. Those same scenes were playing out in Akihabara. I managed to slip through the chaos of the battle and barely escaped the radio building with my life. I had no choice but to leave Kaguri's body. I took the long way back to the lab so that no one would find me. By the time I arrived, the sun had set and the night sky was illuminated with explosions and tracer rounds. The whole of Akihabara was like someone had poked a beehive. The lights were out at the lab, but inside I found Daru, Maho, Ferris, staring at the TV and the computer monitor.
Okarin!
Yeah, shit.
Okabe-san, yokebuchi de.
Yeah, he's not safe.
ひどい怪我してる。
Yeah, I was gonna say that boy fried.
大丈夫なの？
Hell
本当に
no.
巻き込まれたん？
急いで手当てしないと。
I didn't have the energy to answer them. I looked toward the footage on the TV screen. The reporter was wearing a bulletproof vest and a hard hat. He was screaming at the top of his lungs, trying to drown out the reporters from the other stations.
まるで戦争です。秋葉原駅前や中央通りはすでに閉鎖されて、米軍と自衛隊のヘリや装甲車が今またものすごい発砲音が聞こえました。ここは本当に日本なのでしょうか。まるで内戦中の国の取材をしているようです。政府の発表ではテロということですが、こんな
And then a stray shot from an anti-material rifle fired by a special forces team from some... Huh? Okay, I knew I wasn't bugging, yeah. And then a stray shot from an anti-material rifle fired by a special forces team from some country or another struck the news van's engine and blew it up.
爆発した。爆発が起きました。死にたいのか。今すぐ逃げろ。もう戦争なんだ。本当に死ぬぞ。
An SDF soldier forced his way onto the screen and yelled at the media to run away.
どことですか？知るか？
Hella fine note. Just after that, I heard another explosion and the video was cut off. Did they take a direct hit? Everyone fell silent.
危ないわね。
お家には帰れない。
ネットの情報も大混乱中なんだよ。なあオカリン、鈴葉は？あとマユシは見つかったん？
鈴葉とマユリは鈴葉とマユリは過去へ飛んだのか死んだのかどっちかだ。
Daru stormed up to me
どういう
infuriated.
ことだよ。もっとちゃんと教えてくれ。
戦闘ヘリがタイムマシンにロケットランチャーをタイムマシンは破壊されて、それに鈴葉とマユリが乗ってて過去へ飛ぶ直前だったんだ。マシンの残骸は残ってたけど全部じゃなくてなるどれだけ探しても鈴葉もマユリも死体が見つからなかったんだ。体の一部さえ残ってなかった。まるで跡形もなく消えたみたいに。あの二人ちゃんと過去に止めたのかな。
The tears I tried so hard to hold back came pouring out. Daru fell to his knees. Ferris and Maho were staring at me, eyes wide in shock. Daru slammed his fist to the
そん
floor.
なバカなことってあるかよ。あるのかよ。
I tried to wipe away my tears and realized I was holding something in my right hand. It was the cell phone that Mayuri had given me. She told me to read the message on it. It wasn't locked. I opened the mail folder. There were several unsent messages addressed to her and her family, to her friends and family. One of them was addressed to me. It was as though she wanted me to read. With shaking fingers, I tapped the screen to open the message. Are they gonna read it?
オカリンへ。
Yeah.
てってるー。マユシーです。本当はちゃんとお話ししようと思ったけど、うまく言えるかどうかわからないし、オカリンに引き止められると迷っちゃいそうだからメールにしました。私はすずさんと一緒に過去へ行ってきます。なんでってオカリンは怒るかもしれないね。でもこれは私がやらなきゃいけないことなの。だってあの時私の彦星様をどんなに苦しい時でもいつも立ち上がって高笑いをあげてた強い強い彦星様を暗い雲の向こうに隠しちゃったのは私なんだから。私ね、勘違いしてた。みんなは未来をオカリン一人に押し付けようなんてしてなかったんだね。オカリンの周りにはダルくんがいて、すずさんもいて、デカくんもいて、フェリスちゃんもいて、ユキさんもいて、それに
That's cool.
マホさんも加わった。だから今度は ね。私の出番だって。これはラボメンナンバー002の初めての大きな任務なんだから。オカリンはきっと心配すると思うけど大丈夫だよ。それにもしも何かあったとしても必ず助けに来てくれるって信じてるから。私の大好きな法院京馬が新しく作ったタイムマシンに乗って必ず。だから私は行ってきます。必ず戻ります。オカリンのところへ戻ってきます。私は法院京馬のことが好き。でもね、岡部倫太郎のことはもっと好きだよ。
お前忘れてるだろ。お前は俺の人質なんだぞ。いなくなったら人質にならないじゃないか。何かあったら助けに来いだと。人質のくせに生意気だろ。狂気のマッドサイエンティストがお前なんかのために。お前なんかのために。お前はバカだ。でももっとバカだったのはこの俺だ。
My heart was in pain. It hurt so much. I'm sorry, I just... If that last thing is clipped, then I'll know. Well, actually, I mean, somebody here watching it, so who would clip it, but... what a tension breaker, I'm so sorry. If you didn't hear it, then don't worry about it, but it's fine. It was just like after I killed Curse. Maybe I'll be better off if I just fell over and died. I would do anything to be released from this pain. But in the corner of my tear-blurred vision, I saw it. Hoing Kyo must find a weapon. His last hope. No, it was the thing that had brought me so many nightmares. I staggered to the development room and threw off the cardboard that was covering it. There it was. The phone wave, named subject to change, Yeat 02. The thing that Maho and Daru have been working on behind my back. If I could complete this... I turned around, wiped away my tears, and saw my friends looking depressed in the middle of the darkened room.
お前たちタイムリープマシンの作り方がわからないと言ったな。俺の言う通りにしてくれるか。クリスの導き出した回をお前たちに伝える。それでタイムリープマシンは起動する。
Maho said the one thing she didn't know was how to compress the memory data. Machine said everything else was finished, and I knew how to complete it. Daru was the first to nod.
やるよ。教えてくれオカリン。
私も手伝うわ。
決まりだにゃ。
All three responded with no hesitation. They turned to me and spoke their answers clearly.
よし。ダル、セルにハッキングをかけてくれ。LHC を遠隔操作する。そこで。
I'm sorry. We gotta read this one. This one's too important.
記憶データを36バイトまで小さくする。それなら過去へ転送できる。
Yep. The LHC, an abbreviation of Large Hadron Collider, which is an experimental device used to cause charged particles to collide and study the results. Built by CERN and located 100 meters below the ground in Geneva. Switzerland. It is the world's largest ring-shaped particle accelerator. Its total length is 27 kilometers. Many different teams, including one from Japan, used the device to perform experiments. The reason it's a ring is that when charged, particles pass through an electromagnetic field. The Lorentz force causes them to bend.
たったの36バイト。
I don't know. You could tell she was a scientist by the way her face went pale at the number.
けどさ、なんか動作が不安定で、こいつただの電子レンジになっちゃう時があって。
ブラウン管工房の42型ブラウン管、それが点灯している時に電話レンジ各国には機能を発揮する。
He knows. He remembers.
そうか。
Just the words CRT were enough for her to figure it out. The life was coming back to their eyes.
完成させられるかも。でも完成したとしていきなり使うつもり？何の実証もせずに人体実験まがいのことをするなんて。
自分の作ったものに自信が持てないのか。
でも
別の世界線でクリスはやってみせたぞ。
それはクリスだからよ。私はあの子にはなれないわ。
アットチャンネルに書かれたクリスのメッセージを見ただろう。
え？
Lastly, I'd like you to pass a message to the person I respect the most. I always regarded myself as an essentially ordinary intellect, and you were always the person I wanted to be. You were the real Amadeus.
クリスにあそこまで言わせたんだ。なのに逃げる気か。
逃げたりなんかしないわよ。見くびらないで。
I nodded back and smoothed back my hair, which had been mussed by the explosion.
今日もこれ。
Yo, Ferris is such like a... Wow. She knew. She knew immediately. That's so crazy. Ferris brought me my white lab coat, which had been hanging for ages on the wall in the development room. I bit down on my lip and wiped away the tears one more time. I took the lab coat and slipped my arms through the sleeves. I spun around so that the hem of the coat flew up and stood triumphantly in the center of the lab, just as I used to. And then I declared in a loud voice.
これより電話レンジカッコ仮2号機を完成させタイムリープを行う。俺に力を貸してくれ。今度こそ俺は絶対に諦めない。
I looked at Daughter and Ferris and finally at Maho.
たとえ何回何十回何百回ダメだったとしても何千回何万回何億回と挑んで何もかも全て救ってみせる。鈴葉もマユリもそしてクリスもだ。これはその最初の一歩となる。
And what? For the first time in a year, I was back to my old self. My friends saw me and nodded, their faces filled with resolve. It took almost 2 full days to finish work on the phone wave. Meanwhile, the chaos in Akihabara continued and it wasn't safe to go outside. Working on the time leap machine... working on the time leap machine while knowing that the battles might reach us at any minute, or that a special forces team might burst in at any time, was a hard job that wore on our nerves. But still, we managed to finish the machine somehow. I jumped. Oh wow. Oh cool, they have a different... Wow, that's cool, okay. Welcome to the first time leap of our playthrough. Next thing I knew, I was standing in the middle of an Akihabara alleyway. I was holding a cell phone in my hand. I had a nasty headache, and there was a stinging pain in my neck. I felt the pain on one side of my head like a migraine headache, and the left side of my face hurt really bad. My vision flashed within dark and bright spots. I took a look around. The alley was still peaceful. I heard no gunshots and no explosions. The otaku were enjoying their shopping and girls in maid outfits were calling out to passerby. That alone was enough to tell me for sure that the time leap was successful. I looked at the time on my smartphone. July 7th, 5:45 p.m. I had around 40 to 50 minutes before the war began. That still wasn't enough, but the 48 limit of the timely machine meant that this was as far as I could go. No point in getting negative. If the time machine had been finished just a little bit later, it would have been too late. I should be glad to have made it here at all. I knew what I'd be doing at this time. I was running around Akihabara looking for Mayuri. First I needed to call Maho. Because I imagine if I don't call her, I would just be going to the same ending. Like, Maho. Moshi moshi.
もしもし、見つかった？
いや、だが場所は分かった。急いでラボに戻ってきてくれ。
I hung up before she could answer and went back to the lab myself. She was already there by the time I
マユリさん
arrived.
見つかったのよね。迎えに行かなくていいの
Daughter was acting a little awkward, probably because he just hit me.
ヒアジョさん、よくやってくれた。
はい？
I grabbed both of her hands and shook them. Both Maho and Daru seemed confused as to what was
俺
going
は
on.
48時間後の未来からタイムリープしてきたんだ。
マジ？
Yo.
完成させたの？最低でもあと48時間以内に？
ああ、
一体どうやって？
説明は後だ。いいか、時間がない。よく聞いてくれ。何人もの命がかかってる。
I gone over the mission many times while waiting for work on the phone wave to finish. I thought of everything to
ヒア
say.
ジョさん、すぐにアマデウスにアクセスしてクリスとマホをバックアップごと全部消去しろ。レース記念はあれを平和利用するつもりなんてない。
何を？そんなめちゃくちゃな。
タイムリープしてきたって言っただろう。あと1時間もしないうちに秋葉原が戦場になるんだ。タイムマシンが狙われるんだよ。それが第3次世界大戦の始まりになる。阻止しないと鈴葉もマユリも死ぬ。
Maho and Daru went pale when they heard that.
マジ？え？マジ？
だから俺の言う通りにしてほしい。
データにはアクセスできるけど、外部からいじるには教授の持っている管理者権限が必要よ。
そこから先はダルの仕事だ。クラックしてデータを完全破壊しろ。
オキドキ！任せろ！
Daru started typing at an incredible speed. His daughter's life was on the line. Maho stood next to him and typed in her ID password to begin accessing Amadeus.
俺はラジカンへ行く。ここは任せたぞ。
オカリン！鈴葉を頼む！
はあ、任せろ。
Daru didn't even look from his computer. By the time he got there,
鈴葉、マユリ！
yeah, I was gonna say. When I made it to the top of the radio building, Mayuri quickly ducked behind the time machine.
おかり。
Mayuri was trying not to look at me. Her eyes were a little red because she'd been crying so much. She heard me talking about Kurisu's sacrifice in the Alpha World line. My heart ached again, realizing how much I heard.
マユリ、タイムマシンで過去へ戻るつもりか？
どうして？
俺は48時間後からタイムリープしてきた。全部知ってる。
それ本当？
I nodded.
ここはあと30分もしないうちに戦場になる。
まさかタイムマシンのことがどこかから漏れるの？
あ、
まずい。だったら今すぐに飛ぶしかない。
Suza leapt into the time
い
machine.
や、ちょっとだけ待ってくれ。ダルとヒアジョーさんが
今先手を打っているところだ。優秀な二人だ。必ずうまくいくだろう。でももし仮に思い通りにいかなかったら。
行かなかったら
お前たちは死ぬかもしれない。
かもしれないってどういう意味？オカリンおじさんがタイムリープする前の世界で私たちはどうなったの？というかおじさんがタイムリープしてきたってことは何か致命的な失敗があった。そうなんだね。
I didn't know if I should tell them. No, there was no time to
鈴葉と
hesitate.
マユリが乗っていたタイムマシンは時間跳躍直前にロケットランチャーの直撃を受けた。でも乗っていたお前たち二人の死体はマシンの残骸の中からは見つからなかったんだ。
なるほど。だからかもしれないか。それなら未来は確定してない。まだ成功の可能性は残されてる。
鈴葉ならそう言うと思った。
止めないでよおじさん。
Her eyes are filled with resolve. They seem to say that if I tried to stop her, she'd do whatever it took to ensure I failed. Of course, I had no intention of stopping her. She'd come here to do her job, and there was no way to change her mind. Actually, I'd come here to ensure that she could jump without having to worry about Stratford's interference. But Mayuri, the uncertainty that had been going on in and out, that had been going in and out of my head. Let me restart. The uncertainty that had been going on in and out of my mind ever since I read her message reared its head again.
なあマユリ、本当に言ってしまうのか？お前に隠し事をしていたのは謝る。でも俺もクリスもみんながお前のことを大好きなんだ。そんなお前を助けたくてこの世界線にたどり着いたんだ。なのにお前が言ってしまったら俺たちは。
おかり。
いやお前の気持ちは痛いほど分かってるけど。
ねえオカリンおじさん、
And then Suzuha
オペ
spoke
レーションアー
softly.
クライトが発動したんだよ。
オペレーションアークライト。
You see, I'm not crazy.
私が聞かされていた当初の計画とは違う。戻るのは去年の7月28日じゃなくて8月21日になった。
8月21日。
That was the day Suzuha had come into the time machine, and the day I give it up on everything.
そのオペレーションにはマユ姉さんも必要なんだ。未来の父さんから私はそう指示を受けた。ついさっき。
なんだって。
In the future, Dar had come up with an operation I knew nothing about, and he needed Mayuri for it. Her unexpected words set my mind reeling.
おかり。
And then Mayuri came close enough for me to hold her, and grabbed my hand tight. There you go. I just had to check something real quick. She looked a little like she was about to cry, but her eyes were clear and
マ
bright.
ユリ。
行かせて。マユシーもラボメンなんだよ。落ち込んじゃってる彦星さんをマユシーがひっぱたいてきてあげるから。お願い。
I remember what was in that message. I remembered how she must have felt right now. 'Cause she looked like she was about to cry, but her unexpected words set my mind reeling.
お願い。
I
お願い。
remembered what was in that message. I remembered how she must have felt right now. The last remnants of my hesitation slowly
Ore.
melted away.
わ俺一人で何もかも背負ってると勘違いしていたんだな。周りのことが見えてなかったんだな。マユリだけじゃない。俺の近くにはたくさんのラボメンたちがいるのにな。
おかり。
It was Luskin. Suddenly felt a horrible pain in my... No, it wasn't. Actually, no, never mind. I suddenly felt a horrible pain in my leg as the shock knocked me several meters forward and onto the ground. I looked down at my leg and saw that there was a red stain around the calf. It felt like it was on fire. The pain flared up each time my heart beat and I couldn't stand. Was I just shot?
お前
Yep.
かがり
It wasn't Luskin, it was her. Yep. The girl in a motorcycle suit was standing there. Kaguri had a gun. Excuse me. Had a gun in her right hand, and in her left she was holding what looked like a bomb. There was no sign of the professor or the other men in camo. Not much was fortunate, but Kaguri had shown up a little earlier than I expected. I hadn't quite planned for this, but evidently I've run out of time.
スザーマシンに乗るんだ。今すぐ飛べ。くだらないことを言って悪かった。お前を守るためなら誰はどんなことでもやってのける。失敗なんてするわけないよな。
オカリンおじさん
だからマシンは無事に飛べるだろう。
もちろん
In fact, there was no sign of anyone but Kaguri showing up. That meant that Daru and Maho's efforts had been successful and they kept the secrets of the time machine out of Stratford's
マユリ
hands.
も行け早く。
She was looking at my injured leg and
俺
panicking.
のことなら心配ない。14年後までは絶対に死なないからな。
Kaguri fired again. The bullet struck less than 30 centimeters away from where I was lying on the ground.
誰も動いちゃダメじゃないとその人を殺しちゃうよ。マシンに乗らないでそれは教授に渡すの。その後使い方を教えてもらってかがりが未来へ帰るのに使うんだから。
Kaguri, you're crazy. What the hell?
構うな。ここは俺が何とかする。早くしろ。スザーもだ。係のことは俺に任せてくれていい。
分かった。マユ姉さん中へ。
Suzuha pushed my earring inside the time machine and out of my sight.
オカリンおじさんかがりのこと頼んだよ。
了解だ。
Suzuha followed my earring inside. At the same time, the hatch started to close. Kaguri ran up to it. I forced myself to stand, ignoring the piercing pain, and blocked her way.
邪魔はさせない。
うるさい。どけ。
断る。
どけよ。
Kaguri kicked my injured leg and heart. The pain made me so dizzy I could hardly stand. Kaguri slipped past me and tried to grab onto the time machine. She was gonna use the bomb in her hand. If she did, things would turn out the same as last time. My time leap would be wasted.
降りろ。じゃないとこの爆弾でマシンを壊す。
やめろ。
I grabbed her from behind and wrapped my arms under hers. I pulled her away from the machine, ignoring the pain in my
分
leg.
かってるのか。そんなことをすればお前の大事なママが死ぬんだぞ。
でも私は
おとなしくしてくれ。頼むから。
Mayuri tossed the hard drive to me from the almost completely closed hatch. What fell on the floor was the thing Kurisu had left behind for Maho.
これはクリスのどうしてここに。
I thought Russia had
父さ
destroyed
んを
it.
怒らないでやって。これからのタイムマシン研究に必要なものだと思うから。
I could just barely hear Suzuha's voice within the machine. Honestly, bro don't need it. He's chill. He's chill. He don't need it. So that was it. Daro hid it here in the time machine. Or hid it in the time machine. Ah! Yes. Yes, this amazing CG, bro. I love it. It's amazing CG. I can see Mayuri looking at me from the small gap in the door. That's right. This is a temporary goodbye. I'd see her again someday. Right, Mayuri? So I would send off my brave lab member 002 with my head held high.
頼んだぞ。ラボメンナンバー002椎名真由里。オペレーションアークライトを完遂しろ。情けないこの俺を引っ叩いてきてくれ。
任せて。オカリン、私ね、オカリンのこと大好き。
That's all bro got. Yeah. Oh no. I smelled as the hatch sealed completely shut. The time machine started to roar. I felt like I heard a helicopter in the distance. I believed in him. But for now, I had no proof that Dara had been able to crack the complicated Amadeus system and delete every bit of data. It was possible that special forces special forces teams from all around the world were converging on Akihabara right now. Imagining that made me want to hurry. Quickly. Go. Quickly. I felt like praying as I watched the pale light surrounding the time machine. Kaguri's cry went unanswered. But now they're gone. A bright light covered the time machine, and it vanished from this world.
成功だ。
Kaguri saw, then glared at me with eyes full of
どうして
hate.
どうしてママを行かせた。
She shook away my hands and pointed the gun at my head. I stared her dead in the
君
face.
の素晴らしいママは鈴葉と一緒に世界をダメにしたバカな男を叱りに行ったんだ。この世界のためにとっても大事なことをしてきてくれるんだ。
嘘だ。ママも鈴葉お姉ちゃんもかがりを置き去りにしていったんだ。
嘘じゃない。俺も君がもっと幸せな場所で真由里と出会えるようにこれから頑張ってみる。だからもうやめにしような。
そんな話信じられない。
いや、君なら信じてくれるはずだ。だって俺は君が本当は誰でどんなに優しい人かよく知ってるから。
The gun barrel started to shake a little.
私を知ってる。
知ってる。俺は48時間後から
Kaguri put her hands to her head as her body spasmed with pain.
神様のこれが騙されるなって言ってる。お前は嘘つきな敵だって。殺してしまえばママのところへ帰れるようになるって。世界を破壊しようとする悪いやつは殺せって。それで私は元の世界へ戻れる。
Kaguri wasn't making any sense. Was this brainwashing? Had the professor done something so cruel?
わからないよ。
I grabbed the flailing hand that held the gun and looked deep into her eyes. She was crying and
聞く
scared.
んだ。ママはきっともう戻ってこない。でもこれから俺たちが頑張れば
もしかしたらママも君も幸せな形で一緒に暮らせる世界が訪れるかもしれない。君のママはそのために時間を飛び越えていったんだ。そのママの気持ちを台無しにしちゃダメだ。君は今からでもやり直せる。
神様の声に逆らってもいいの？
ああ。
The voice of God she was hearing was probably the professor's brainwashing. How far it had its claws sunk into her mind, I had no way to tell. But now we had Maho, a specialist in brain science. If we work hard at treatment, I'm sure she'll be okay.
ねえ、岡部さん。
Her voice was normal again.
ママに会いたいよ。会えるかな？
会えるさ、いつか。
よかった。
There was another sudden gunshot. Kaguri's body collapsed right in front of me. I looked over at where it came from and saw another girl in a black motorcycle suit. She wasn't wearing a helmet, so I could tell it was Moeka Kiryu pointing a gun at us. Her face was deathly pale and she was crying.
なんでお前がこんな。なんでだよ、桐生萌か。
FB ねえ FB 私あんな女になんか騙されなかった。こんなの偽物の携帯だって分かったよ。だからお願い、私を見捨てないで FB。
The cell phone fell from her hands. Another shot from her gun blew it into fragments. I held Kaguri in my arms. Her chest was turning red. That same scene.
おい、しっかりしろ。
よかった。神様の言う通りにしても間違うことあったんだ。自業自得
Yeah,
ですよ。
it
彼
basically
女の
is.
心を踏みにじって利用しようと
Yeah.
したからごめんなさい。こんな子になるつもりじゃなかったの。ねえママ、どこなの？
Her voice grew thinner. Maoka Kiryu collapsed some distance away. Her eyes were unfocused and all she did was mumble. She didn't seem capable of coherent thought. Both of them would be in danger if I didn't get to them or get them to a hospital. But y'all are really late. Dozens of men in camo jumped over the fence on the roof out of nowhere. Even Daru and Maho could have succeeded in this shorter time span. But was this world line going to converse so that the war started here no matter what? No, but yeah.
無駄なんかじゃなかったさ。
Yeah. If nothing else, they bought me time. And that had delayed the attack long enough for Suzuha and Mayuri to leave. That's right. In this instance, we already won. The way forward was still uncertain, but there was no doubt that the path to Steins lay before me.
目標1ロスト。目標2、目標3もロスト。どうなってる？
The leader was talking on his radio. Come on, show it, show it, show it, show it. I can see helicopters. I can see attack helicopters in the sky. I heard that siren
ゲリ
again.
ラ攻撃情報。ゲリラ攻撃
Yep,
情
so
報。
we already heard that.
当地域に
The
ゲリ
war
ラ
was
攻撃
starting.
の可能性があります。
Just as I had
屋
thought,
内に避難
even
し、
a timely
テレビ
machine couldn't
ラ
change
ジオを
that.
つけてください。
リンタロじゃないか。
He's not concussed this time. Luskin appeared from behind the men in camo. That's right. He's a secret member of Stratford, just like
な
them.
ぜここに？ かがりは死んだのかい？聞かせてくれ、リンタロウ。タイムマシンはどこに？
I lay Kaguri down on the ground and slowly rose back up. Blood wouldn't stop coming out of the wound on my leg. The pain was getting worse. But even still, I stood up proud and strong, in front of the men with their guns, in front of the attack helicopter with its rocket launchers, in front of the professor, in front of the war that was about to begin. I laughed as loud as I could in that voice. Yo, shoot.
よく聞け、間抜けどもめ。貴様らが手に入れようとしたタイムマシンはもうここにはない。この時代にはもう存在しないのだ。残念だったな。せいぜい悔しがるがいい。そして恐れるがいい。この法王院京馬は貴様らにも運命にも負けることはない。俺は必ずシュタインズゲートを見つけてみせる。
That's right. This is the beginning of the long, long epigraph necessary to reach Steins Gate. Madness is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Einstein had said one. Well, I ruined that. Einstein had once said that when he when he despaired of human folly. But now, I would gladly give myself over to that madness and folly. I would use every bit of dedication and obsession within me to seek that lone different outcome which the laws of God could not reach.
それがこの俺の選択だ。
Oh man. Okay. We did it. We reached another ending. And one of the best endings in the game at that. Oh my gosh, I love Vega and Altair. Excuse me, Altair. Oh, what a good ending, man. What a good ending. Oh man. But we're actually not supposed to play the game this way, right? I can't explain it yet until we get way further, but you'll see later on once we get there that I actually played the game the wrong way. But I'll explain later. I'll explain why later. But yeah, so that's Vega and Altair. Amazing ending. I love that ending so much. It's so hype. It's the return because it contrasts Gehenna so well, Gehenna Stigma so well, because that you have two sides of Okabe, the one who can't bring himself to keep fighting, and the one because of his friends he keeps fighting and becomes Hoi and Kyoma. Okabe isn't Okabe without Hoi and Kyoma. We see that throughout the story. The game doesn't feel right without two things, Makise and Hoi and Kyoma. And we got half of that. We got half of that. So, you know, we'll see what happens in the next ending, which I already know which ending I'm going to get next. I'm not going to spoil which one it is, but, you know, you'll see it when we get there. But the next ending shouldn't take too long to get to, if I'm being real. But yeah, I'm really excited, man. I'm really excited to continue. But I did want to explain why I don't like the Yuki twist, but I don't have the time, if I'm being honest, because I gotta go. I didn't plan to stay this long playing the game. I actually intended to stop the stream 2 hours ago, but I wanted to make good progress, and on top of that, I got caught up in the ending. So I do gotta stop here, because I was going to actually set up trying to get to the next ending, but I'm gonna have to do that for the next stream. So, you know, we'll see what happens then. But yeah, so Mayuri's ending. We got Mayuri's ending. we have 2 out of the 4. And of course, one of these is the true ending, so we have 3 more character endings. But yeah, so we got Mayuri's ending. And now we're missing well, actually it said it over in the clear list. So we're missing 46% of the album, and we're missing 44 of the tips, and we're missing 4 more endings. But once we do that, we're done. We're not halfway. I know that ending felt like it could have been the ending, but we're not done. We're not done. So just be ready for that. But yeah, no, as much as I do want to continue, I do have to end the stream here. So until next time, I'll try to get another stream for you guys soon. But we'll see, because like I did finish the video. I do want to get at least like 1 to 2 more streams before I start working on the next video. But we shall see. We shall see. But until then, thank y'all for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you did as well. And until then, watch the video I just released on Suzume. Watch the VODs if you want to, and stay ready for the next stream. But I'll see you all in the next one.